The views and events expressed here are totally whacked and are not necessarily the views of anyone.
Choose your destiny.
Dime qué tú quieres, papi. ¿Quieres que lo mueva para ti? Mueve, mueve. ¿Te gusta cuando me muevo así? Así.
Thank you, God, for this day we have lived, everything in our life, our health, our family, the guidance you have given us, allow us guidance to the path of righteousness. Amen.
Really, I'ma get that bitch. Revenge is a dish best served cold. She took my son, now my soul is cold. He took my daddy, now my soul is old. Yeah. Woke up. Yeah, man.
That's hot shit right there, man.
So what we gonna do? We gonna dub?
King Chaka ENT. Y'all can check out the music on Spotify, Apple, and other services. Doing what we do 3 to 4 nights a week. King Chaka ENT.
I got this.
From the
She
back
starts
seat.
shooting.
That dude was like, ow.
What was that?
Outside the car,
That nigga
deputies'
got
body
popped.
cameras capturing the bullets flying through the air.
We got shots fired
couldn't
up
have been
here.
a straight
We
shot.
need
It had
backup
to be-
immediately. Start
Are you-
EMS. Start EMS.
What
We got
the
a
fuck?
civilian. We got a civilian hit.
The deputy.
Looks like we got us another hit.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, an educated public cannot be controlled. Learn to be active. The views and events expressed here are totally whacked and not necessarily the views of anyone. Human Nature is the name of the show today. My green screen looks kind of funny. Human Nature. They like to, the reason why I kind of made this the title is because I was thinking about how they like to say that we're all selfish, that self-interest is what drives us. It's our main driver as humans, and then that becomes an excuse for this corporate capitalism, this exponential growth, this profit above everything. And then it's like, and then they're like, there's no better system. It's like, no matter what you do, it's going to turn into that. And I don't think that's true. I think that's a lie. And that is an excuse to use for the system to be the way that it is today. And I just don't think that is true. I think that us as humans, we're naturally altruistic, we're naturally community, we're naturally egalitarian, we naturally share, we naturally care about our neighbors, when others are hurting or in need, we naturally feel it, and the other part of it is like your mind only exists inside of your brain, so then there goes that egotistical way of looking at the world. Like, all that matters to me is what affects me personally, but I really don't think that's true. I think that attitude is fostered, I think that attitude is something that they have given to us, something that they, they feed. Of course, it's a part of us. It's just not what's dominant about us. It's not. But they have made it so, or made it appear so that the system that we live in is all about looking out for yourself. It's all about profit. It's all about hoarding money. It's all about, stepping on your neighbors and stunting on them. But I really don't believe that's true. I think that, human nature is balance, it's give and take. As far as like you think about us in the evolution of man, and how the Aboriginal peoples around the world, whenever they take something, they give something back. And whatever they do, they keep in mind, the rivers, the fish, the trees, the plants, the animals. They keep all of that in mind with everything that they do. But the systems that we live under, we don't. It's all about humans, and it's all about what we want over everything else. And that's the reason why things are falling apart. That's the reason why things are out of balance. That's the reason why we're polluting the earth. Animals going extinct left and right. Like, we think we really can just survive on this planet with just humans. We need the plants. We need the animals. We need the oxygen. We need the water. We need the earth. We can't live without these things. We're not even separate from them. We're a part of it. It's all one whole. And that's just a reality. Anyways, I have some stuff on this. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get away with it. I don't know. Do I want to jump right into it or not? I think I'm gonna wait and come back around to that, because I have something talking about that, human nature and so forth. Anyways, I think I'm gonna come back to it. Y'all check this out. I'm sorry that it came in so loud. I didn't know it was going to be that loud. But look at Biden. He looks so out of place and uncomfortable. Like, am I supposed to clap? Everybody else is moving and clapping and like vibing, and Biden is just like stiff as a board. Like, oh, so this is what y'all do in church? Like, this is how it goes? Like, I don't know what am I
used to
supposed
the
to.
demonic church. Yeah, I'm used to demonic churches.
I just thought this clip was funny. So it's Black Wall Street posted this, and it said Biden's first time at a black church. I don't know if that's true, but it's clearly true that he's awkward and seems out of place and seems like he doesn't really know what to do. Like, just vibe out, bro. Just clap like everybody else is doing. You can sway back and forth or whatever. Like, you don't feel the vibe. What's up, Biden?
No, he doesn't. No, he does not feel the vibe.
That's the whole
He
point.
is still trying to figure out the vibe. He's new to the planet. Like, he's a
That's what
baby.
he looks like. He looks like a fish out of water, like a damn alien. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. What's up? What's up, Pat? How you feeling, man?
Doing pretty good, man. I'm just slowly, well, I'm still rolling. I got started late today, but I'm out here rolling, and I'm trying to take part as best as I can, because my internet was already kind of fooling around with me. But I'm driving through Arkansas, so what can you expect?
I was about to ask you where you was at, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Might as well be in the middle of nowhere. Might as well be on the moon.
Damn near.
No offense to you, Arkansas people that's maybe watching. Y'all know
Do
y'all
you know?
live,
You know,
you
there's
know,
some people that call it Arkansas.
Arkansas. I don't know, man. You know,
Yeah,
I
I was
think
like, I was like, no, that is not it. Like,
isn't it an
yeah.
Indian word? Isn't it an Aboriginal word?
Um,
Man,
honestly,
don't get me to lying. I
I
know that they
don't. I mean,
sent the Indians over there.
yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, because I mean, Arkansas would have been a part of the. I mean, because it was at one. I would say it had to be English or something because of the time period in which that it got its name. Because I mean,
Well, they always steal
what
from earlier stuff. They always do.
well, in
They're
some
not.
cases, I mean, well, there's some places that never changed from what it was, especially when we're talking about counties. Like counties were like the countries to the Aboriginal people, like or more like their cities. You know what I'm saying? Each county was almost like its own city, and that's why the sheriff, was is still over counties and parishes and stuff like that. But um, as far as the states, them being renamed, I
Oh man, you're breaking up.
like Louisiana, that's supposed to be, I guess, a combination of French and hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I thought yeah. All right, well yeah, Louisiana. I mean, that's what partially because it was Louis, King Louis, and I don't know Louisiana. But Mississippi, that's been something that's been around for a long time, and I think mainly because of the Mississippians, the and that river, the people that lived along that river was called the Mississippians. Um,
Yeah, I think a
but
lot of those names come from. I think Kansas is a word that came from earlier. So a lot of those came from way earlier.
I would definitely say like yeah, Kansas, like Iowa, like just think about Iowa. So that sounds like somewhat of an Indian name too.
Yeah,
Um,
and a lot of it was mistranslated and mispronounced and misunderstood.
yeah,
Check this out. Did you watch any of the Tiger King? Remember that show?
you know what? I never really. I think I might have saw like some commercials or like some little small bits of it, but like like as far as clips or something. But I never watched the full.
I ain't gonna lie, I got into that. I was into it. I ain't gonna lie, I watched the whole thing. That dude was a whole character. It was just a whole mess. Well, anyways, Carol Baskin's husband is apparently alive. Like the whole thing in the show, the guy was saying that she killed her husband, you know, and he kept on saying that, and it was pretty compelling. And the story around it was pretty compelling. That was a big part of the show. It was a reality show that was following this guy, and basically he had a cult following of people who barely made any money, and they just worked for him. Anyways, everybody knows that show. But anyways, apparently her husband, she clearly didn't kill her husband because he's alive. It came out. Let me read this right here. Wolf Star. It says, according to reports, Carol Baskin's ex-husband, Don Lewis, who was declared legally dead in 2002 after going missing, is reportedly alive and living in Costa Rica. Carol reveals the Department of Homeland Security has been in touch with her ex-husband. Carol told the morning talk show, they said that my husband, Don Lewis, is alive and well in Costa Rica. The first comment, it says, damn, Tiger King owes her an apology. That dude went to jail. I don't know what he's doing now. I know he went to jail. He got in trouble. He was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I just, it's not anything I really want to spend any time on. But if you watch the show, then it made it look like she killed him. Apparently, she didn't, because he's still alive. Let me see a couple of random stories before we get into it. This is a history photographed. It says vintage dating tips for women from a 1938 magazine. This is a little interesting to me right here. So check it out. It says, men don't like girls who borrow their handkerchief and smudge them with lipstick. Makeup in privacy, not where he sees you. Another one, it says, careless women never appeal to gentlemen. Don't talk while dancing, for when a man dances, he wants to dance. These are all tips for the women, what they're supposed to do or whatever. 1938. And this one, it says, if you need a brassiere, wear one. Don't tug at your girdle, and be careful your stockings are not wrinkled. Let me read another one. It says, don't be familiar with the head waiter talking about the fun you had with someone else another time. Men desire your entire attention. I'm willing to bet that a lot of women took this stuff as gospel. And even to this day, let me read some more. It says, don't sit in an awkward position. Don't sit in awkward positions. And never look bored, even if you are. Be alert, and if you must chew gum, not advised, do it silently, mouth closed. So these are all rules that women should be doing. Let me read this one. It says, don't talk about clothes or try to describe your new gown to a man. Please and flatter your date by talking about the things he wants to talk about. This one, it says, don't drink too much, as a man expects you to keep your dignity all evening. Drinking may make some girls seem clever, but most get silly. I bet you they feel like it's okay for the guy to drink as much as he wants. Let me read this one. It says, don't use the car mirror to fix your makeup. Man needs it in driving, and it annoys him very much to have to turn around to see what's behind him. Another one, it says, don't be familiar with your escort by caressing him in public. Any open show of affection is in bad taste, usually embarrasses or humiliates him. So this says dating tips for women from Parade magazine back in 1938.
Oh. Okay.
First comment, it says, I'm going to go ahead and say a man wrote these tips. I would agree with that.
Well, do you believe the whole idea, because there's this, I don't know, I think I might have mentioned to you the chick Jaguar Wright. She's been going around giving off, I guess you could call it rumors, or just at least her point of view of what was going on in hip hop or in the music business. But she was talking about how that chick Glorilla and Cardi B, they don't write their own music, and it's like women don't feel weird by believing, or knowing that the stuff that they're chanting, the ideas that they are listening to, and the message that they're getting excited about was still written by a man. It wasn't written by a woman. And that they're following trends of things that a man saying that they should be doing. The talking the way they should be talking. Like you listen to Glorilla and Cardi B before, right?
Yeah. And I heard some of that of what you're talking about. I kind of breezed through it, but I believe there's some truth in it. There's a lot going on related to, I don't know, manipulation, the ratchetness, a lot of the songs aren't even how they really are, that not even how they really feel about things at all. And it's it's affecting the women in terrible, terrible ways because they think that it's real, they think that it's true. But these women tuck all this ratchet stuff in their songs, and then they go home to their man, and they're submissive, they listen, they're not ratchet. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you're right. There's some of them that do, but I mean, just think about. I mean, there's a lot of young girls that are hearing these things and thinking that this is real stuff. This they don't know where this message came from, or even like, yeah, some of them probably gonna listen and they never interact with any of those points of view in their own life, but they're still chanting these things. That's still like that
So it
still could
affects
be
them even on a subconscious level if they're singing along to these songs.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's affecting them, and then when they act out or when their behavior, sometimes they don't even know why they did what they did, and it's related to them damn terrible songs that they're listening to.
Hmm. Yeah, but you know, because I mean, I think, because I mean, a lot of times, especially during the time period, we got to think about a lot of the men that was pushing patriarchy were guys who barely, like, I mean, like they probably could barely get a woman. They need somebody that's going to do everything that they say, and or needs to feel that type of power to actually feel like they're in control of somebody. It's just, you got to think about it. The weakness of patriarchy is really, a lot of people don't really realize how weak how weak it makes someone to really feel. Because I actually had a conversation with a guy here saying, when he, last night, and he was talking about how, when he was raised up, his dad was the boss, and whatever he say, his mama had to do, and his sisters, he was like a younger brother, and he had two older sisters, and as far as his dad was concerned, that he was the boss over them, like him, the guy, the little boy, was the boss over his older sisters and stuff. And it was just like, well, I don't care, I'm old school, and I was like, I was like, well, just because it was old school doesn't necessarily mean it was right.
I'm telling
Like,
you.
being
And
fair with somebody and actually considering somebody else's thoughts might help you out. You know
and
what I'm
and,
saying? Give
and
you a,
it's a small way to be too. It's like it's really kind of immature. Um,
hmm
that's the way I see it. And it's an immaturity.
most
Uh,
definitely.
Let me read this one. It says, men, this is a comment underneath the history photograph. It says, men historically, women are too emotional to do what a man does. Also, men, here's an entire list of tiny petty rules you must follow, or else I will be a really grumpy, upset boy. I think that they chose those words carefully because basically you being a kid. So follow these little tiny petty rules that I have, you know.
Hmm.
Anyways, yeah, that's the patriarchal the patriarchy is childish.
Yeah, it really is. It's an immaturity that, because of it, we haven't been able to have the growth that we could as a society. Because, like, I think I've used this, this point of view a few times, but if you really think about it, when we were under the systems of patriarchy, our societies lasted for thousands of years, for sure, hundreds of years, 600-700 years at the least. They would, you know, be balanced enough to carry on and not really have the weakness, because I mean the men under a patriarchy, doesn't make them weak. It's more of a mindset where they allow. I mean, really, I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, without a woman, there is no man. So there's a certain level of respect that a man must have to that understanding. When you don't, or you feel like, or you can get to the point where, I don't need a woman, and, you know, I remember hearing it one time, like in Rome, like they only had sex with women for children. They had sex with men for fun. Like, okay, uh, I didn't get it. I just didn't understand like why not just have fun with the female, you know? This, but I don't know. Either way,
Yeah.
it's a very imbalanced way to see the world,
Freaking
and
twisted.
to think it's okay.
Let's get into some politics. This one, Move On posted this. It says, I was disappointed that the first bill the Republicans in the House passed would help wealthy people cheat on their taxes at the expense of ordinary middle class taxpayers. It would add 114 billion to the deficit. Their very first bill. House Republicans campaigned on inflation. They didn't say if elected, their plan was to make inflation worse. So that's a quote from Biden right there. So this is interesting because, like you sent something to me earlier about the debt ceiling. What is it? The debt limit, right?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and that's coming up. And I think that there's an agenda going on with this. And they've been trying to come for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid for the longest time. So, but then on one hand, they're okay with giving tax cuts, and then on the other hand, they're like, we don't have enough money for Social Security. So, like, how are you gonna do both? Like, how are you gonna say we don't have enough money for Social Security, but at the same time, you know, do tax cuts?
Well, I think it's a bunch of BS. Because I mean, both sides definitely are trying to make sure that there's a good structure on taxing, and I mean, the middle class has taken up the brunt of that over decades for certain. So, and like I said, I think that's a bipartisan thing. Like that's one of those arguments that they use to say, oh, well, you see what they did, but I mean, they voted on the same bills. You know what I'm saying? Like they're down there together, and that most of them are, a lot of them are super rich to where those very bills or those very tax cuts actually benefits them, so they don't argue about it. It's just one of those things they use to point the finger to say who's on their side and this, that, and the other. So it's both of them. What that's the problem. I know usually we hear the Republicans on tax stuff, and it's kind of a hard thing to do, but I mean to really understand fully. But I think that because of the taxes, it's supposed to inspire more usage in a way, so that because I mean, the lower taxes are, the lower interest rates are, the more business that happens. So that's part of the thought process. But at the same time, you know, I think the spending is really the biggest problem. Like they keep coming up with bills that's bigger than the last one. So how is it that we're going to actually get out of debt? And a lot of times I don't even think that they focus on the debt at all. They only pay, or if it's anything being paid, it's mostly just the interest.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the other end of what has to be paid is how much do you have coming in. So if you pass legislation to cut the amount of that you have coming in and then turn around and say we don't have enough to pay this stuff that we've been paying, there's a disconnect there going on.
Hmm. Oh yeah, it really is, and it's so much corporate, well, government and corporate thievery that's going on that some of it. Because I was watching this other thing, I wanted to share it with you and the guys, but the video was too long to share. But they were talking about some plan that Canada has, and they were trying to put up, $2 billion of government money that's coming through this bill that they just recently signed. The what's the one that Biden been fighting for? The fighting inflation. I don't know. I forget whatever it's called. The bill's called, but either way, the lady that was, they was asking for this money, and she's like, "Well, I don't see anybody who's on the board of directors. If there's a board of directors, if there's, there's no business structure like this, there's no business plan. What your plan is use it to spend the money on. Like there's nothing, and they're asking for $2 billion just out of the blue, like with no plan." And it's
Well,
like, she was talking about how disappointed they are with it. But what I'm saying is, there's all this money moving around. It's time. It's where all the greed starts happening and money getting spent in places where it shouldn't.
right.
And
That's what I'm about to say. Ukraine, because how you going to be talking about debt ceiling and we can't pay for Social Security and Medicare, but we didn't send $1 billion to Ukraine. I mean, that don't make no sense to me. That don't add up.
well, it's more than $1 billion. But you're right. And I'm sure I done beat up on them enough. I'm just gonna say it without trying to imply anybody, because I mean I think it's a lot of hand in hand workings. That the top elites are working to make sure each of them are fine and can give a damn about us, and it's our money that they're spending, quote unquote, so to speak, based on what at least what the way they tell us, because
Yeah, I'm afraid.
because of their
I'm af- I'm
because of
afraid they're gonna
go
leave
ahead.
old people assed out without, cutting their Social Security or cutting their Medicare. You know, it's like they got plenty of money for, like I say, sending to Ukraine, but all this kind of social type programs, that's where they want to cut. At the same time, where they're spending all of this money, and they're talking about they got a debt limit. I don't get
Hmm.
it.
But look, I'm gonna tell you, and a lot of people don't want to look at it this way, but the very reason why people went on to the Capitol Hill the way they did January 6th is because of shit like this. It's like y'all are, mishandling funds. The people of America, who this money is for, is struggling and getting the worst end of the deal, and people across the world can benefit from our monies more than we can.
And if
So it's
if we,
like,
if we reach a
go ahead.
debt limit and we don't have the money for stuff like Social Security and Medicare, and you got everybody's family, mom, grandma out here struggling, you're gonna really have people out in the streets. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have a huge mess on your hands because
Yeah.
people ain't gonna be like, you know, they're not gonna be having that.
No, I mean, and say, bro, and it's true. If they think that January 6th was not even, I think that was small potatoes to what it really could be, because, like, it was a protest that ended up getting out of hand to some extent, and I think some of it is still even lies, because, like, you know, I still think that they should, put somebody on the stand that, or the person that they're accusing of everything, put them on the stand and make them, what you call it when if they purge themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Under oath.
You know, yeah. So, but however, I mean, I just don't see them doing the shit that they supposed to be doing, and it's mainly because of the theater. They're trying to, have the court of public opinion instead of just sending them to court. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to get people to be displeased with him, but the people who was already displeased with him is gonna be the same way, and the ones that wasn't, like, I mean, and there's gonna be some that's gonna be caught up in the middle because they're getting new information as time passes by, and they'll smarten up and realize, like, these people full of shit. Like, you built a committee to just talk shit about this dude instead of actually bringing him up on charges because you got something on him. No, put the motherfucker out of jail if he's fucking, if he's the thief that you say he is, or the espionage, like all these different things that you can accuse the man of. If he's guilty, fucking lock him up, hang him, whatever the hell y'all gonna do. But you can't keep on acting like, you know what I'm saying, he did something and you're not gonna do anything about it. You just want to be like nanny boo boo, like, see what he did, y'all being just a tattletale. No, fucking do something.
Let me play this.
The countdown is on for Congress to come to an agreement on the debt ceiling. The U.S.
I'm pressing too many
expected to
buttons.
hit its borrowing limit at some point tomorrow, something that has not happened in more than 11 years. Elon Moy has been tracking the developments and has more on what it could mean for the markets. Elon.
Well, Melissa, there is still a little bit of time. The Treasury Department is expected to begin deploying extraordinary measures tomorrow in order to keep paying the nation's bills, and that'll kick off the debt limit fight here in Washington. Now, those measures include suspending reinvestment in the Thrift Savings Plan for federal workers and pausing new investments in the Civil Service Retirement and Disability Fund and the Health Benefits Fund for retired postal workers. Now, Treasury projects that'll buy us enough time to stave off the specter of default until at least early June. But this is all happening a little earlier than Washington had anticipated. And one of the reasons for that is higher than expected interest rates. Last spring, the CBO projected that the cost of paying down our debt would be about $400 billion in fiscal 2022. The reality was the total was $475 billion, more than we spent on veterans benefits, transportation, or even higher education. Republicans say this is exactly why we need to pump the brakes on spending. This week, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy ruled out a clean debt limit increase, calling instead for common sense compromise on a balanced budget. But Democrats counter that the debt limit should not be a political bargaining chip. So, Melissa, we're going to hear a lot of this kind of rhetoric over the next few months because this is unlikely to get resolved until lawmakers on both sides of the aisle feel they've exhausted all of their options. Back over to you.
It is a political bargaining chip, though, Elon. And so, I mean, I'm wondering from a market
really
participant standpoint, I think traditionally it has been something that is assumed will work itself out. Nobody wants to drive the U.S. to default. No party wants to own that at all.
Yes, they do.
And so something will be done. Why, in your view, do politics actually, play out this time so that it may actually get to that point?
Yeah, I think the real risk here is not that someone is going to ride the default train into economic oblivion or political oblivion even, but rather that there's the risk of an accidental default because the political maneuvering that it could take to get us out of the brinksmanship that we've seen in the past could take some time. The measures that people are talking about, whether it's a discharge petition, whether it's a complicated procedure that would kick authority back over to the president in order to raise the debt limit, whether it's debt prioritization, all of those things take time to work out. And when you're operating against a deadline, the one thing you don't have is time. So I think that's the concern. Remember, back in 2011, the U.S. credit was downgraded even before we actually even defaulted. The U.S. didn't actually end up defaulting, but even the specter of it was enough to rattle markets and enough to rattle investors. So I think that's the risk that you're really seeing here. And the other big political difference is that now any one member who's unhappy with Kevin McCarthy's decisions in the House can force a vote to oust him as speaker. And so that creates another level of political uncertainty where you could end up with leadership in Congress who you don't even know who that person's going to be or who you're going to be bargaining with in order to get out of the mess.
And they're playing this game, and it has real world consequences. What did they say earlier? They're going to affect the postal workers' retirement funds. What did they say? Real people are going to hurt while they're playing around with this shit. Like, you know, like they're just talking about it like it's a talking point, but real people are going to hurt as a result. And I think this is going to go on. This is going to go on into the summer and maybe even further.
Well, and I like how the lady came back and said, no, this is a bargaining chip. This is a political tool, like something that they're going to use to, you know, I guess, get what they want, or, you know, like to, you know, I guess to use as fuel for why that this party or that party is not on your side or whatever. But one thing that I think that people do need to fully understand is one or the other. We on a 50-50 playing field, and it's either our the executive administration, either they're evil genius on knowing how to break down the government, or they're totally incompetent and have no idea what they're doing. And I mean, I think it's the first one, because I mean, we got somebody who's in office for who's been in there 50 years.
These people are not incompetent.
Like, exactly. So I mean, they're purposely trying to run your country into the ground, and by you not seeing that and calling them on their shit, it just allows them to continue doing the same old bullshit where they can use certain things, because a lot of this stuff is a facade. Like a lot of it is a lie, because a lot of these things could be different and will be different based on the narrative. And they're pushing a narrative that's making people see it one way or the other. But because really what they want to, I mean, a lot of people don't believe it, but they really want to run the country down that way, that they have a reason to be able to say that it's to justify, you know, us being a part of this one world government. So I mean, look, I mean, you see it however you see it, people, but I think y'all need to come look at the facts and say, and you decide what side you want to pick, that he's either an evil genius or he's just too dumb to handle his job.
Let me read some comments. This one, it says, a capriciously arbitrary number, always farcical production when it comes up, leverage based on smoke. So this person is saying like it's basically not a thing, but it appears to be, but they get real concessions as a result of this, you know, political maneuvering.
The propaganda, they're able to sell the story and make people believe that this is what's going on. Because I mean, we got to remember, like, I mean, you had an argument, or well, not an argument, but you had a discussion with somebody on Facebook one day, and y'all went back, whatever, and I put my 2 cents in, and you know, they're telling me that what I'm saying makes no sense, but the same reason, that's the same reason why Gaddafi got killed, is because he was gonna bring in a currency that was backed by, you know, minerals that's in the ground, actual you know, something that actually retains the value of the money, instead of something that's able to go flip-flop back and forth, no matter, you know, depending on how much you print up. When you have a system that's backed by gold or silver or oil or any natural resource, you have something to compare it to. You're not just what do they call it when you just kind of
printing money?
Get the terminology, but say it again.
I just said printing money. Just printing it.
Well, no, yeah, they're printing money, but like they're able to give the different values based on, you know, the trade. Like, you know, some countries will buy bonds and this and that, you know, that kind of somewhat put some value on it, or you know, when they're, but however, you need something, because it doesn't give really any intrinsic value, nothing to really just make stabilize it. And when you can just print up more money and then it drops value, the more you have, the supply and demand portion of it. I mean, you're never gonna see a real, where the country can really grow because any moment they can change it just based on a lie, a story, or whatever they want, however they want to present it to you. So, I mean, we're gonna continually get screwed as long as we go under this system like this.
Let me read some more. It says, there's a circus around this every time, but it passes. And then it says, and we then finally have a laugh. Another comment, it says, the problem is a bunch of idiots in Congress and our government that doesn't know how to manage money. They think they can just keep on getting a blank check. Another comment, it says, why would we have to increase the debt limit when Biden just told us he reduced it by $1 trillion? Was that true or false? Another comment, it says, defense had to squeeze in another $800 billion right before the limit. Another comment, it says, what are the expected cuts the Republicans are demanding? Who will it impact? These would have been some good questions to answer here. I hear it is for Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. I really feel there is more to this story, and they aren't even mentioning that part. I don't believe it is a favorable one. Let's cut military spending. Because talking about spending, but they're okay with spending money for Ukraine. They're okay with talk about a blank check. The military industrial complex, they freaking lost another $1 trillion. Like, they're unaccountable.
Well,
Don't even know where it went.
That's the only real thing of manufacturing that the America has is its those, I guess, the all of the military guns and missiles and this, that, and the other. Like, that's the main thing that they create and they can have a really big business on. So, like, that's one of the things that they fight for. That's what they're known for. That, like, having all of this stuff to bully whoever they want to bully. They sell into, like, that's the biggest market they have. So, yeah, they put money into it, and that's part of where they're making a bunch of money at. But it really is insane, bro. Because it doesn't make sense, especially when we're not really at war, except for the fact that we're, we're funding Ukraine. But other than that, like, what, I don't know. I guess maybe they're planning to be in war with somebody.
To be at war, because there ain't no justification for that budget, for that military budget. There's really no justification for it. Logically,
mean, and we keep saying that's $1 trillion right there, bro. I mean, we're saying 845, whatever, 800.
All problems solved. Just all problems solved. All problems solved related to this topic by not giving $1 trillion to the military industrial complex. All problems solved overnight with one move. Let me read some comments. It says, people don't understand the Federal Reserve is based upon debt. As asinine as it seems, it's literally fundamental to perpetuating the marching. That's what it is. It's all based on debt. Like you said, instead of being based on gold or something, it's based on debt. It's so crazy. Another comment, it says, this is all intentional. I don't want to bore everybody with this topic. I don't know how much people even get this. I want to move on to the stuff about humans and human nature. First, let's talk about the scientific dogmas. I want to do that, and then it's like what we get wrong about human nature, and then the part related to. Let's see. I'm trying to decide. Let's do this human nature one.
Who are you? Who am I?
I might get in trouble for this video, but I really like this a lot. And we can stop it as we go. Check this out, y'all.
What is the essence of humankind? What does it mean to be human? Human nature refers to the fundamental traits of humanity, our most basic and natural ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. Human nature is supposed to be this universal concept that, regardless of nurture, regardless of our environmental, social, political, and psychological conditions, we cannot truly transcend. I disagree. There are certain instincts we possess that I might consider universal to humanity. For instance, fear as a means of basic survival, or disgust as a means of self-preservation from disease. Yet not everyone experiences fear or disgust, and what we fear or disgust varies considerably from person to person, place to place, culture to culture. Some people fear the depths of the ocean, others fear the peaks of the mountains. Some people are disgusted by even the idea of eating crickets. For others, it's a healthy treat. The balance of our hormones may also play a role in determining how we behave.
Pause. You sent the thing earlier talking about the crickets being in the hidden in the ingredients.
Yes.
I'm
I
not.
watched the video. Like, I don't know how good or how bad it is or whatever, but at the same time, I don't know if it'd be best for me not to know it's in there. But I think that's one of the things that they were doing to stretch the food. Like if you're getting some kind of meat, hot dogs, hamburgers, this, that, and the other, where it's they're using it as a filler. And
Well, I will be way more concerned with the synthetic stuff that they use versus that. I think that wouldn't bother me nearly as much as this fake stuff that they're putting in there. So I would, like the guy was saying, I would be one of the ones that it wouldn't bother me that much. At least it's natural.
Well, at least you know what it is. And you saying at least it's natural. How natural is it?
If it's a cricket, it's natural.
Yeah, but if it's a cricket, along with what else?
Yeah, that the what else part is what would bother me, is what I'm saying.
I guess. Look, I don't know what kind of thing, because just because it's natural doesn't mean that it's not it can't be bad for you.
I don't think crickets would be bad for you.
That's on you. That's your opinion.
I just think
it's hard. I think it's horrible. It may not be the worst thing, but it definitely ain't like the best either.
Yeah. Let me play some of this. Let me play this.
But we are not slaves to our hormones. We can and do override our base impulses when the situation calls for it. We also obviously have certain shared needs, things like air, water, food, sleep, and shelter. We want safety, respect, and connection. We seek pleasure, but how we meet those needs vary also according to culture, climate, and identity. If human nature is just what humans do, then it is a concept of contradiction. Humans hate and humans love. Humans are violent and humans are peaceful. Humans destroy and humans create. Humans form hierarchies and humans tear them down. But when people bring up human nature, particularly in arguments about the viability of liberation from systems of oppression such as capitalism, patriarchy, and the state, they never seem to highlight our noblest features, only our most despicable. Humanity is defamed by humans themselves. To the misanthropes and their ilk, we are all just agents of chaos and wanton environmental destruction. They sweep us.
And see, that's what I was saying at the beginning of the show. because that's what it seems like. It's the narrative that, we're just humans, we're just destructive, we're selfish, we're egotistical, we just destroy the world. But that's not true, I don't think.
Beside the vast antagonisms of class, gender, and race, they dismiss the distinctions between authoritarian empires and stateless societies, assigning all equal accusation. Capital HUMANITY overrides the examination of the social relationships and institutions that have forged our present outcomes. So the question persists. Our journey begins to discover what exactly constitutes human nature. I'm not the first person to explore the idea of human nature. Across history and throughout the world, theorists and philosophers have posited different interpretations of the concept. Socrates believed that the life most suited to human nature involved reasoning. His student Plato and Plato's student Aristotle developed a notion of the human soul in the 4th and 5th century BCE that consisted of two parts, one home to instinct, passion, and desire, the other home to logic and reason. Aristotle, in particular, also recognized man as political, meaning able to develop complex communities and systems, and mimetic, meaning able to use his imagination to create artwork. I say man and not humanity because Aristotle saw women as subject to men. Of course.
Of course.
Elsewhere, Mencius, a Confucian philosopher in the 4th century BCE, argued that human nature was good, with an innate tendency to an ideal state formed under the right conditions. To him, the four beginnings of human nature's morality were a sense of compassion that develops into benevolence, a sense of shame and disdain that develops into righteousness, a sense of respect and courtesy that develops into propriety, and a sense of right and wrong that develops into wisdom. He believed the development of virtues came from reflection, and if one didn't reflect, they wouldn't develop their moral constitution.
Pause. It says, if one didn't reflect, they wouldn't develop their moral constitution. I think that a big issue with us as humans is that we don't reflect on, what we've done as far as like, we just keep moving because there goes the excuse that humans are just innately horrible. So, it's like if you did some horrible things, then it's like you don't even think about it. You just keep on rolling. You know what I mean? And that's the reason why there's no morals. Like the saying of never having to say you're sorry. I hate that. I hate that idea. It's basically saying I'm never wrong. I never do anything wrong. I don't have to apologize because I don't never do anything wrong. Therefore, you have no morals. Therefore, everything is open. That's where you get the ideas of where they talk about the elite doing all this stuff related to pedophilia or, eating babies or just whatever. Literally whatever whatever they want to do, they just do it. And they feel like, they literally have no morals because they don't reflect. Let me play a little more.
According to Mencius, evil came from a lack of reflection and self-development in one's natural direction. However, another Confucian philosopher in the 3rd century BCE disagreed. Junshi believed human nature was essentially bad, and that learning was the only cure for the destructive and competitive natural ways of humanity. Later on, the legalist framework of human nature would embrace the notion of it being inherently evil. However, unlike Junshi, they didn't think even education or self-cultivation could eliminate or alter one's fundamentally sick nature. Echoing many of today's proponents of capitalism, 3rd century BCE legalist philosopher Han Fei argued that everyone is motivated by their unchanging selfish core to take advantage of whoever they can especially when they know they can get away with it.
Of course.
Similarly, Emile Durkheim believed humanity to be naturally egoistic, and David Hume assumed humans were driven by selfishness and emotions and needed society to make them more reasonable. However, Hume also recognized that humans had an innate sense of honor, beauty, and nobility. In contrast, according to Akan philosophy, what it means to be a person is to selflessly contribute to one's family and community. Of course, adjusted for one's level of opportunity. The size or type of contribution matters far less than the practice itself. Further east along the West African coast, the Yoruba held similar beliefs. To be a person is to be substantially dependent on others. The community is the basis for the actualization of one's values and personality. This position can also be found in the Pan-African philosophy of Ubuntu, a form of African humanism developed in the 1950s that sees humanity as a quality we owe to each other. It can be neatly summarized by its particularly iconic phrase, "I am because we are." Yoruba philosophy also recognizes that while humanity retains certain activities and needs, the way those activities are carried out and those needs are met are subject to change according to ever-evolving material conditions. Karl Marx's concept of species being was similarly informed by materialist analysis. He argued against traditional concepts of human nature as incarnating in individuals in favor of human nature forming within social relations. To Marx, human nature wasn't permanent or universal, but rather always determined in a specific social and historical formation. Humans change their environments, and their environments, in turn, change them. The Raramuri tribe in the Sierra Madres region of what is now Mexico have traditionally believed in Iwigara, the idea that all life forms are interconnected and share the same breath. Even the land itself and the winds that blow through it share kin. Obviously, the sheer variety of the philosophies of indigenous cultures cannot be painted with one broad brush, but we can identify certain similarities. Many indigenous philosophies have recognized that we cannot be divorced from our environments. There is no neat separation between human and nature. We are part of the same family. Life can only be viable when humans view nature as kin, all part of the same ecosystem, enhancing and preserving, giving and taking. Anthropologists refer to this way of seeing the world as animism. Because animists believe all beings are related, they heavily regulate their interaction with living systems. For the most part, and asterisks do indeed apply. That means that while they may fish, hunt, gather, and farm, they do so while remaining cognizant of the sustainability of those systems. They do so in the spirit of reciprocity, not extraction. They live by the principles of what today's ecological economists would call a steady state economy. Never extract more than ecosystems can generate, and never waste or pollute more than ecosystems can safely absorb. The decline of animist ontology has coincided with the rise of capitalism, which has continued to sever our bond with nature, leading to many people embracing the view that human nature is fundamentally destructive. Human presence has come to be seen as a threatening corruption of the natural world. We've become estranged from our role as a species of stewards.
Yes. Are y'all following this? We're supposed to be stewards of the land, you know? We're supposed to be, it's supposed to be give and take. We're not supposed to take more than we need, you know? And you leave it the way you found it, you know? You clean up after yourself, you know? You don't leave trash.
Leave it better than you found it. That's always my saying, but okay.
Yeah, it's the same. I agree with you. Let me read some comments underneath this. This one, it says, barely 12 seconds into the first video of the first 11 days of New Year, and Drew already hitting us with a full-on identity crisis. Let's get into it. Another comment, it says, Empathy for others, especially in the group, is such a basic human emotion that is even primary to mammals and other animals in general, and quite possibly all of life. Another comment, it says, while there's no shortage of philosophers of anarchism, quite few can put into words this incredibly complex theme and make it sound easy to understand and listen. Let me read some more. It says, love how I get 2 notifications. Let me go back to the video. He starts talking about musical chairs and about, let me just play it.
Welcome everyone to the final round of Musical Chairs Death Battle. We have quite the crowd out here today in the stadium for this fantastic finale, as each round more and more teams have been eliminated. With each round, teams have lost not just a seat on one of the coveted musical chairs, but also their lands, their homes, their food, their livelihoods, their healthcare, their children, and more. Competition has gotten absolutely vicious as the tournament has continued, with former allies turning bitter rivals as they fight to survive against the onslaught of the prevailing champions. The Taino, the Yoruba, the Maya, the Wet'suwet'en, the Kalinago, and the other fan favorites have been knocked out by our all-time champions, Team Empire. However, everything is on the line with this finale, as the question remains, who will win the last chair? Team Haiti has admirably held its ground throughout the tournament, but Team Empire looks about ready to take them out once and for all. Let's listen in on what's happening on the field as the two competitors, George Hobbs Columbus and Jean-James Haiti, face off for the final chair.
I don't see what we're fighting, man. Look at all these chairs. Clearly, there's enough to go around. So what game are we playing? There are other ways to live with each other, be with each other, where life isn't just a competition for a place to rest. I mean, look at us. What we're doing to each other is making all of our lives worse off. And for what? All this violence and devastation. For what?
Money, power, control. It is our birthright. We are Empire, and we won't rest until all this world's chairs are ours. You will sit where we want you to sit. You will stand when we want you to stand. You will fight viciously amongst each other for a seat at the table like crabs in a barrel. We will enjoy our thrones of profit because we will own you, and you will take whatever we choose to give you. You will struggle and you will toil for the mere button on the cushion of our footstool. And when we win this competition, you will beg us for the right to sit and kneel.
That's some good old-fashioned smack talk if I ever heard it. Welcome back to the best place we could be on a weekday, in the presence of the spectacular, stupendous, and intoxicating spectral of competition. I can't imagine anywhere more enlightening, more emetic, more eBay than what we've been blessed to observe with our orbital globes today. You smell that? That's the vivacious energy coming from this glorious crowd as we get ready for the incredible finale of Musical Chairs Death Battle, beginning right after this word from our sponsors, Chairs for Africa. Yes, Chairs for Africa, where every chair, and I mean every chair Team Empire wins, they'll graciously donate beautifully reused, refurbished, and re-ready to love chairs to the somehow impoverished people of Africa. Truly touches my heart. We'll see you after this.
We are told that human nature is selfish, greedy, and competitive. But the truth is that we have a range of possibilities encoded in our biology. We can be aggressive or we can be peaceful. We can be patriarchal, we can be egalitarian. We can be cruel or we can be kind. We can be competitive or we can be cooperative. Some claim that war has been a fact of human life basically since we carved the first spear. But war is not inevitable. It's a consequence of certain socio-political and economic arrangements. Some stateless societies knew only peace for centuries before having to defend themselves from waves of colonization, enslavement, genocide, invasion, disease, and more. Others claim that patriarchy and gerontocracy are baked into human nature. They are, after all, some of the oldest forms of oppression. But the existence of long-standing gender and age egalitarian societies, such as the Mbuti and the Hadza, as well as the fluidity of gender as a concept recognized even in prehistoric art, highlights that neither patriarchy nor gerontocracy are unassailable. Is hierarchy human nature? Now, expertise may always exist in some form or fashion, but hierarchy, at least in the way that anarchists use the term, relies on the principle of authority, which is a social construct subject to change that empowers the ruler in an ongoing hierarchical relationship to give commands and make the subordinate obey under threat of violence. Humans have cooperatively self-governed their lives for thousands upon thousands of years without rulers. We are capable of both authoritarian and anti-authoritarian behavior. Avoiding authoritarianism and maintaining egalitarianism relies on a conscious understanding of one's material conditions and an anarchic determination to resist social arrangements that give some people the advantages and ability to impose their will on others. Peaceful, egalitarian societies have long existed alongside patriarchal warmongers throughout our history. Which traits predominate in our society is determined by what our material conditions incentivize. Everyone can learn cooperative behavior when they have the need or desire to do so. In nearly all natural disasters, cooperation and solidarity among people increase, and it is common people, not governments, who volunteer to do most of the work, carrying out rescues and protecting one another throughout crises. Without our capacity for altruism, built upon the evolutionary foundation of mutual aid and cooperative child rearing, we would not be human. That isn't to deny the role of mutual struggle, but it must be stressed that the dominance of greed, selfishness, and competition are an outcome of specific social arrangements and material conditions. Whether acting in one's self-interest to pursue personal well-being produces cooperation or oppression is determined by the systems an individual is embedded within. As British philosopher Andrew Collier wrote in Marx, A Beginner's Guide, to look at people in capitalist society and conclude that human nature is egoism is like looking at people in a factory where pollution is destroying their lungs and saying that it is human nature to cough. Ultimately, the conditions in our society are what shapes what human nature is, how it develops, and what aspects of it are made manifest. Egalitarian societies and hierarchical societies will shape people in radically different ways. Both are within the realm of future possibilities. We know that human beings have the ability to think and learn for ourselves, that we are social creatures capable of organizing ourselves without hierarchy, and that we can recognize and oppose injustice. With these three characteristics in mind, by recognizing and opposing the conditions that favor domination and proposing horizontal social arrangements to actively reshape our powers, drives, and consciousness, we can bring forth our liberation.
Man, I hope y'all are following this. I know it's really philosophical, but this is great stuff right here. I can't say it better than this guy is saying in this video. That's the reason why I wanted to play it.
So
Let
what
me read
is he
some.
saying?
He's saying we don't necessarily need governments. We can be egalitarian. And it's like you think about whenever there's like a horrible event that happens, the people always come together. And it's usually the people who come and help people way before the government or state comes and does anything. You know, we don't really need them. You know, but what he's saying is the systems is what drives people to behave in the way that they do. Okay? And if it wasn't for those systems, then people would naturally just behave in different ways. Like we would naturally be egalitarian. We would naturally, you know, help each other. You know?
Well, yeah, but ever since you've gotten sold on the idea of government and what it does for the for the greater good of all, like people are not gonna even give a damn about this, egalitarian. Uh, like I mean, most people don't even understand what structure they're under, so to even know what to fight for, or when their rights are getting stepped on, they don't even know what their rights are.
And I agree with that. And it's because of the system. So, there goes the anarchist part of me, because I say just burn it all down, and let the people build a whole new system. Yeah, this is heavy stuff. I don't know if people are following it. Let me read some comments. It says, "This is a solid analysis. I am reminded of the quote from the introduction of David's Wingrow and Greg Barr's The Dawn of Everything. It follows that arguing that whether humans are fundamentally good or evil makes about as much sense as arguing about whether humans are fundamentally fat or thin." It says, "Wow, I did not notice The Dawn of Everything was a source for the video when I wrote the comment, but now I can see how some of the themes came up in the video again. I really dig the excellent analysis." Another comment says, "Great video. I learned about the Akon philosophy of personhood freak." I lost it. Personhood in college, and it's really great to hear about the parallels found in other distinct cultures. The Kropotkin quote was sick too. What's up, Doc? We're talking philosophy.
Okay. Cool. I'm always good for some pure mental masturbation.
Yeah, that's what this is. Let me read another comment. It says, "We're not."
Y'all go ahead and get y'all rocks off.
Let me read another comment.
Well, we gotta find some way to simulate some extra rattling in our head sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's really good for you. It's good for your mental. It's a mental exercise.
No, well, I think every now and then, but like, what about the retention?
Well, the thing about this stuff, whenever it's dense stuff like this, when you get introduced to it, you may not retain it, but then you hear it again later, and then that's when it makes sense. You hear it again later, and then it makes a little bit more sense. It's the kind of stuff It's the kind of stuff that you don't really get right away when you first introduced to it. It's the kind of stuff that you have to dig around in.
Yeah, or either walk through a situation near, close to it, and it dawns on you that, oh, that's what the hell they're talking about.
Yes, exactly. That's how it works. The part where he was talking about how we fit all together as a whole.
We're one of one. We're all one of one.
Yeah, and the part where he said if you really look at it, you have a hard time separating.
What the heck is wrong?
You have a hard time separating
I gotta
humans.
do another restart.
All right, you have to do a hard. It's a hard time separating us as humans from the earth and from the animals, from the plants. When you really look at it.
But should we really be doing that?
No, but we have this view that we are separated. That's the problem. That's the point of having this conversation, is to try to get people to understand that they aren't really.
No, I mean, just like how they say, all right, we have a universe inside of our body, so we are, it's so above, so below. So I mean, it's a lot of things that okay, whether you realize it or not, it is what it is, and the quicker you relate yourself more back to being a part of this system, like you're not something special. You know what I'm saying? We're all special, depending on how you want to look at it, but you're not really, because it's like it's not even a dime a dozen. Like shoot, it's a dime per however many hundreds of million. But however, we shouldn't be separating ourselves that way. Like I mean, I don't really know how to explain it to them any deeper than that, because
Yeah, it's dense stuff. So there's another part of this, the part where like science has become like a dogma. I
some
gotta
of
make
it,
sure.
yeah,
I
when it's
wanna,
not based in fact. I mean, what you know?
I don't want to get the beginning of this because it's some stuff in here that I can't play. I want to say. Anyways, let me see. It says on January 12th, am I sharing this? On January 12th, 2013,
Yes.
Rupert Sheldrake gave the following talk, TED Whitechapel. The theme of the night was Visions for Transitions, Challenging Existing Paradigms and Redefining Values. On March 14th, 2013, TED removed Rupert's talk and released a brief statement. We feel a responsibility not to provide a platform for talks which appear to have crossed the line into pseudoscience. Okay, so this was a TED talk that got kicked out. This is really, really good. Let me see.
Is it one of those things that's where they're trying to censor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, they were censoring this one because of what he says makes too much damn sense. And he, there's a part in here where he talks about how the speed of light changing, and talking about like the evolution of even the speed of light and gravitational forces, and how like in science they've already decided that these things are a constant, so therefore they don't measure it to the point to show that there are fluctuations related to it. There goes the dogma of science, the parts where we should be asking questions about, and they're saying that it's a constant, so there's no point in asking those questions. There goes what the whole basic fundamental part of science is: question everything.
Exactly. I'm glad you said it, because I was like, no, there's really nothing that we shouldn't question. I mean, some things might. There's even things that we've dealt with as a younger people, and then come back around, like gives you can see it from a different point of view. Like it give like you
I'm a,
gotta be, if you're not really still pondering these different values, and you got to look at it from different angles for it to be valuable enough for you to keep you know looking it over to understand it better. So
yeah, I'm gonna play this one in clips. It's this is not so philosophical, so it's a lot easier to follow.
A science delusion is the belief that science already understands the nature of reality in principle, leaving only the details to be filled in. This is a very widespread belief in our society. It's the kind of belief system of people who say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science. It's a belief system which has now been spread to the entire world. But there's a conflict in the heart of science between science as a method of inquiry based on reason, evidence, hypothesis, and collective investigation, and science as a belief system or a worldview. And unfortunately, the worldview aspect of science has come to inhibit and constrict the free inquiry, which is the very lifeblood of the scientific endeavor. Since the late 19th century, science has been conducted under the aspect of a belief system or worldview, which is essentially that of materialism, philosophical materialism. And these sciences are now wholly owned subsidiaries of the materialist worldview. I think that as we break out of it, the sciences will be regenerated. What I do in my book, The Science Delusion, which is called Science Set Free in the United States, is take the 10 dogmas or assumptions of science and turn them into questions, seeing how well they stand up if you look at them scientifically. None of them stand up very well. What I'm going to do is first run through what these 10 dogmas are, and then I'll only have time to discuss one or two of them in a bit more detail. But essentially, the 10 dogmas, which are the default worldview of most educated people all over the world, are first, that nature is mechanical or machine-like. The universe is like a machine. Animals and plants are like machines. We're like machines. In fact, we are machines. We're lumbering robots, in Richard Dawkins' vivid phrase, with brains that are genetically programmed computers. Second, matter is unconscious. The whole universe is made up of unconscious matter. There's no consciousness in stars, in galaxies, in planets, in animals, in plants, and there ought not to be any in us either, if this theory is true. So a lot of the philosophy of mind over the last 100 years is trying to prove that we're not really conscious at all.
It's funny to me how the audience is always, they're going to be laughing throughout this, totally like unplaced laughter. That was one part of this video that kind of bothered me. It shows how people are, where their brain, I don't know, they just, I guess when they hear something that makes them feel uncomfortable, they just automatically laugh. But this is a real thing that's happening in science, where they're trying to find consciousness, right? They're trying to define it. They're trying to be like, okay, well, we're conscious. Well, then what makes us conscious? What is consciousness, right? And then they look at the rest of the world, the rest of the universe, and they're like, you know, it's just unconscious matter. But then how the hell are we conscious and everything else in the universe is not? You know, that doesn't really make sense when you think about it.
No, well, that's the thing. I mean, people forget, I think, the cell, how a cell works. And of course, like, we're just, you know, different, different, because I mean, us as our physical body, we're still a cell, an organism, or whatever within the universe. But if you really just break it down, like the way it works, it sends signals. It's energy, little pieces of energy that's sending signals and messages and stuff back and forth. So it's an intelligence that we just can't put our finger on 1,000%. But
I agree with that completely, because either nothing is conscious or everything is conscious. They can't be like, what's so special about us? How the hell do we fit in the whole thing then?
That's the whole point.
So the matter's unconscious, then the laws of nature are fixed. This is dogma 3. The laws of nature are the same now as they were at the time of the Big Bang, and they'll be the same forever. Not just the laws, but the constants of nature are fixed, which is why they're called constants. Dogma 4, the total amount of matter and energy is always the same. It never changes in total quantity, except at the moment of the Big Bang, when it all sprang into existence from nowhere in a single instant. The 5th dogma is that nature is purposeless. There are no purposes in all nature, and the evolutionary process has no purpose or direction. Dogma 6, biological heredity is material. Everything you inherit is in your genes, or in epigenetic modifications of the genes, or in cytoplasmic inheritance. It's material. Dogma 7, memories are stored inside your brain as material traces. Somehow everything you remember is in your brain in modified nerve endings, phosphorylated proteins. No one knows how it works, but nevertheless, almost everyone in the scientific world believes it must be in the brain. Dogma 8, your mind is inside your head. All your consciousness is the activity of your brain and nothing more. Dogma 9, which follows from Dogma 8, psychic phenomena like telepathy are impossible. Your thoughts and intentions cannot have any effect at a distance because your mind's inside your head. Therefore, all the apparent evidence for telepathy and other psychic phenomena is illusory. People believe these things happen, but it's just because they don't know enough about statistics, or they're deceived by coincidences, or it's wishful thinking. And Dogma 10, mechanistic medicine is the only kind that really works. That's why governments only fund research into mechanistic medicine and ignore complementary and alternative therapies. Those can't possibly really work because they're not mechanistic. They may appear to work because people would have got better anyway, or because of the placebo effect. But the only kind that really works is mechanistic medicine. Well, this is the default worldview, which is held by almost all educated people all over the world. It's the basis of the educational system, the National Health Service, the Medical Research Council, governments, and it's just the default worldview of educated people. But I think every one of these dogmas is very, very questionable. And when you look at it, it turns, they fall apart. I'm going to take first the idea that the laws of nature are fixed. This is a hangover from an older worldview before the 1960s, when the Big Bang Theory came in. People thought that the whole universe was eternal, governed by eternal mathematical laws. When the Big Bang came in, then that assumption continued, even though the Big Bang revealed a universe that's radically evolutionary, about 14 billion years old, growing and developing and evolving for 14 billion years, growing and cooling, and more structures and patterns appear within it. But the idea is all the laws of nature were completely fixed at the moment of the Big Bang, like a cosmic Napoleonic code. As my friend Terence McKenna used to say, modern science is based on the principle, give us one free miracle and we'll explain the rest.
Give us one free miracle and we'll explain the rest. So it's like, you know, the singularity, the idea of the Big Bang is always a huge argument within science. You know, what happened before the Big Bang? And then how, like, physics breaks down in the Big Bang. Physics breaks down in the singularity. Like, the physics that we know doesn't work for the Big Bang, you know, before it, or to create it, or to spark it. You get what I'm saying? The physics that we understand is all after the Big Bang. So
yeah, I think that's going to depend on some individuals, because like I said, there are different ways of, you know, different thought processes on how everything just is what it is. So I mean, whatever, it's going to be based on that person's beliefs, you know, what they've been taught to believe in. Because like,
and that's what he's saying. He's saying that because the educated people all feel this way, it's just it's a given at this point, and we don't question these things at this point.
okay, yeah.
And the one free miracle is the appearance of all the matter and energy in the universe and all the laws that govern it from nothing in a single instant. Well, in an evolutionary universe, why shouldn't the laws themselves evolve? After all, human laws do, and the idea of laws of nature is based on a metaphor with human laws. It's a very anthropocentric metaphor. Only humans have laws. In fact, only civilized societies have laws. As C.S. Lewis once said, to say that a stone falls to earth because it's obeying a law makes it a man and even a citizen. It's a metaphor that we got so used to, we forget it's a metaphor. In an evolving universe, I think a much better idea is the idea of habits. I think the habits of nature evolve. The regularities of nature are essentially habitual. This was an idea put forward at the beginning of the 20th century by the American philosopher C.S. Peirce. And it's an idea which various other philosophers have entertained, and it's one which I myself have developed into a scientific hypothesis, the hypothesis of morphic resonance, which is the basis of these evolving habits. According to this hypothesis, everything in nature has a kind of collective memory. Resonance occurs on the basis of similarity. As a young giraffe embryo grows in its mother's womb, it tunes in to the morphic resonance of previous giraffes it draws on that collective memory. It grows like a giraffe and it behaves like a giraffe because it's drawing on this collective memory. It has to have the right genes to make the right proteins. But genes, in my view, are grossly overrated. They only account for the proteins that the organism can make, not the shape or the form or the behavior. Every species has a kind of collective memory. Even crystals do. This theory predicts that if you make a new kind of crystal for the first time, the very first time you make it, it won't
I just heard
have
voices.
an existing habit. But once it crystallizes, then the next time you make it, there'll be an influence from the first crystals to the second ones all over the world by morphic resonance. It'll crystallize a bit easier. The third time, there'll be an influence from the first and second crystals. There is, in fact, good evidence that new compounds get easier to crystallize all around the world, just as this theory would predict. It also predicts that if you train animals to learn a new trick, for example, rats learn a new trick in London, then all around the world, rats of the same breed should learn the same trick quicker just because the rats have learned it here. And surprisingly, there's already evidence that this actually happens.
There is evidence of this, and it's really freaking interesting how it really shows that the species is connected in a way that we can't understand.
Look for the pops. No, not the corners. Excuse me.
Because there's no way that they could have communicated this learned behavior to another of their species that's on a whole nother continent. But there's evidence that shows that this actually happens. So it has to be something that's not explainable through the traditional way of looking at science, or looking at the morphology, or looking at the evolution of beings, of creatures. It really shows that there's some kind of mental connection. There's a universal mind within a species.
Anyway, that's my own hypothesis in a nutshell of morphic resonance. Everything depends on evolving habits, not on fixed laws. But I want to spend a few moments on the constants of nature too, because these are, again, assumed to be constant. Things like the gravitational constant, the speed of light, are called the fundamental constants. Are they really constant? Well, when I got interested in this question, I tried to find out. They're given in physics handbooks. Handbooks of physics list the existing fundamental constants, tell you their value. But I wanted to see if they'd changed. So I got the old volumes of physical handbooks. I went to the Patent Office Library here in London, and they're the only place I could find that kept the old volumes. Normally people throw them away when the new values come out. They throw away the old ones. When I did this, I found that the speed of light dropped between 1928 and 1945 by about 20 kilometers per second. It's a huge drop because they're given with errors of any fractions of decimal points of error. And yet, all over the world, it dropped, and they were all getting values very similar to each other with tiny errors. And then in 1945, it went up, 48, it went up again. And then people started getting very similar values again. I was very intrigued by this, and I couldn't make sense of it. So I went to see the head of metrology at the National Physical Laboratory in Teddington. Metrology is the science in which people measure constants. And I asked him about this. I said, what do you make of this drop in the speed of light between 1928 and 1945? And he said, oh dear, he said, you've uncovered the most embarrassing episode in the history of our science. So I said, well, could the speed of light have actually dropped? And that would have amazing implications if so. He said, no, of course it couldn't have actually dropped. It's a constant. So, well then how do you explain the fact everyone was finding it going much slower during that period? Is it because they were fudging their results to get what they thought other people should be getting, and the whole thing was just produced in the minds of physicists? We don't like to use the word fudge. I said, well, what do you prefer? He said, well, we prefer to call it intellectual phase locking. So I said, well, if it was going on then, how can we be so sure it's not going on today? And that the present values are produced by intellectual phase locking. And he said, oh, we know that's not the case. I said, how do we know? He said, We've solved the problem. And I said, well, how? He said, well, we fixed the speed of light by definition in 1972.
Do y'all get it? He said they fixed the speed of light by definition. So any measurements that go against what the speed of light definition is going to be thrown out automatically because it's an understood constant. And you know, are y'all following that?
Well, I guess to some extent, because I mean, you know,
Right.
I'm sure that's when they're not able to calculate the time, you know, it being the same in, you know, in different instances, it has to be a cause, you know, that might be overlooked. I mean, regardless of, I mean, you say it's a constant, it's always existing. I mean, but at the same time, is it always existing at the same rate or the same? That's the question that I would bring about.
And that's the question that he's asking. That's the point of what he's saying. He's actually saying that it's more likely that it fluctuates. But
Well, you remember Hudgens, who did the first math, said that the speed of light was 131,000 miles per second. But in 1972, they went with 186 miles per second. So, you know, is that a change of definition or is that a reworking of the math?
you know, or maybe it's a general consensus that the scientists have come. They're just like, okay, hey, we're just going to decide, boom, this is what it is. And the thing about that is that all of our measurements come from this. So that's the reason why they need it to be constant, because otherwise it would change all the other stuff. Everything would fluctuate with it.
And the only reason I know about this particular thing is because when I was 8 or 9, I used to be into astronomy and stuff like that, and then drifted away from it, and then went back when I was about 12 or 14 after 1972. Or, excuse me, I was born in 68. When I was young, they were still using all the books that I was reading were still printed before 72.
Yeah.
And then when I got in a little further in school, I started getting books printed in 1986 and stuff like that. And then everything that I read, all of a sudden, everything was different. You know, 70 light years away or 100 light years away was now 70 light years away. The
Right.
closest star and things like that.
So, and that's the problem with this. The reason why it fucks up their math. It fucks up their math.
Well, it's
So-
evolving. It's evolving language and evolving knowledge too. I mean,
But not if you fix if you, what he's saying is, you know, they stop measuring it because they've already decided on what it is. So there's no point in measuring it anymore. We've already decided.
Right. Well, it seems to me with two different decisions, they've already proven it's a variable.
Yeah, but that's
Or
not.
there is some variation.
Well, that's not what's taught, though. That's not what's taught, and you know.
And that's why we're not going to break that barrier until some crazy, autistic, frigging mathematic, insane genius does it and blows up half the fucking planet.
Well, he'd have to have data. That's the issue. If you're not going to have the data if they're not measuring it.
Trust me, I guarantee you, all these guys going to space now, they're measuring it.
I hope so.
They want to be the one that makes that next step. This isn't about the race to Mars. This is about the race to the Kuiper Belt. This is about the race to those minerals that are out past Mars in all those asteroids. That's what these millionaires want. Why the fuck do we need to colonize the Earth when you can land on an asteroid out there that has more GNP than our entire freaking planet ever will?
Yeah, and they've been talking about that a lot, about just
And all of these rare minerals that we're sending kids into slave labor and stuff like that to get, they're in abundance out there.
Yeah,
That's where they came from. That's why we have them, because they hit the freaking Earth and all those meteors all throughout the years.
Right. So, and we're fighting about it here on the Earth, and then they're like, well, the first person who's able to tap into those minerals that are floating around in space, they're gonna be gazillionaire.
Okay, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was working on a series of stories I was writing called From Earth Descended. And it was basically a story about how first we went to Mars and everybody raced for that. And the technology race created the technology that was needed because they found nothing there. But because of technology, they were able to make a base there. And they were, and by being able to make a base there and use the cheap crap there and move stuff there, they were able to get further out to the Kuiper Belt. And then all of a sudden, abundance of minerals and stuff was over. The only problem was getting oxygen, food, and water to everyone that existed. Money wasn't an object anymore. It was just resources. And then from there, they launched the first colony ship. And I didn't know where to go from there. That was the third one, was when the big fight, and they launched the colony ships that weren't going to get to those places for 70 to 100 years.
Yeah,
literally the people that left on, they weren't doing sleeper technology. I didn't go into all that. What I did was they went on a generation ship.
Yeah.
The parents and the families went, and the kids were born, trained, raised into what they would need when they finally found other places and colonies.
Right. And I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, there's a lot of science fiction movies that are
it was
going in
seven,
that
yeah, it was 70
direction.
years. So I did mine for 3 generations. And I didn't know what to do because my notes and stuff were over and life started, so I couldn't really write anymore. But I think the next trilogy was going to be From Earth Descended, them getting there, and there's already been a colony there for 20 years. Because technology advanced enough that they had ultralight travel. So they're 100 years behind everything, and Earth has already set up new technology that has grown a generation beyond what they drifted through over those 100 years, 200 years.
That's interesting stuff. Let me play some more of this.
Oh, I have the program they made this with, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
This Doodly program, I have that program.
It's pretty cool. I watch a lot of these after school ones. It's pretty cool.
Change. You said yes, but we'd never know it because we defined the meter in terms of the speed of light. So the units had changed with it. So he looked very pleased about that. They'd fixed that problem. But I said, well, then what about big G, the gravitational constant, known in the trade as big G? It's written with a capital G, Newton's universal gravitational constant. That's varied by more than 1.3% in recent years. And it seems to vary from place to place and from time to time. And he said, oh, well, those are just errors. And unfortunately, there are quite big errors with big G. So I said, well, what if it's really changing? I mean, perhaps it is really changing. And then I looked at how they do it. What happens is they measure it in different labs. They get different values on different days, and then they average them. And then other labs around the world do the same, and they come out usually with a rather different average. And then the International Committee on Metrology meets every 10 years or so and average the ones from labs around the world to come up with the value of big G. But what if G were actually fluctuating? What if it changed? There's already evidence, actually, that it changes throughout the day and throughout the year. What if the Earth, as it moves through the galactic environment, went through patches of dark matter or other environmental factors that could alter it? Maybe they all change together. What if these errors are going up together and down together? For more than 10 years, I've been metrologists to look at the raw data. In fact, I'm now trying to persuade them to put it online on the internet with the dates and the actual measurements and see if they're correlated, to see if they're all up at one time, all down at another. If so, they might be fluctuating together, and that would tell us something very, very interesting. But no one has done this. They haven't done it because G is a constant. There's no point looking for changes. You see, here's a very simple example of where a dogmatic assumption actually inhibits inquiry. I myself think that the constants may vary quite considerably, well, within narrow limits, but they may all be varying And I think the day will come when scientific journals like Nature have a weekly report on the constants, like stock market reports in newspapers. You know, this week, big G was slightly up, the speed on the charge on the electron was down, the speed of light held steady, and so on. That's one area, just one area where I think thinking less dogmatically could open things up. One of the biggest areas is the nature of the mind. This is the most unsolved problem that science simply can't deal with the fact we're conscious. And it can't deal with the fact that our thoughts don't seem to be inside our brains. Our experiences don't all seem to be inside our brain. Your image of me now doesn't seem to be inside your brain, yet the official view is there's a little Rupert somewhere inside your head, and everything else in this room is inside your head. Your experience is inside your brain. I'm suggesting actually that vision involves an outward projection of images. What you're seeing is in your mind, but not inside your head. Our minds are extended beyond our brains in the simplest act of perception. I think that we project out the images we're seeing, and these images touch what we're looking at. If I look at you from behind, you don't know I'm there. Could I affect you? Could you feel my gaze? There's a great deal of evidence that people can. The sense of being stared at is an extremely common experience, and recent experimental research suggests it's real. Animals seem to have it too. I think it probably evolved in the context of predator-prey relationships. Prey animals that could feel the gaze of a predator would survive better than those that couldn't. This would lead to a whole new way of thinking about ecological relationships between predators and prey, also about the extent of our minds. If we look at distant stars, I think our minds reach out in a sense to touch those stars and literally extend out over astronomical different distances. They're not just inside our heads. Now, it may seem astonishing that this is a topic of debate in the 21st century. We know so little about our own minds that where our images are is a hot topic of debate within consciousness studies right now. I don't have time to deal with any more of these dogmas, but every single one of them is questionable. If one questions it, new forms of research, new possibilities open up. And I think as we question these dogmas that have held back science so long, science will undergo a reflowering, a renaissance. I'm a total believer in the importance of science. I've spent my whole life as a research scientist, my whole career. But I think by moving beyond these dogmas, it can be regenerated. Once again, it can become interesting and, I hope, life-affirming. Thank you.
So what do y'all think? This is one of the most interesting videos I've seen in a while. The idea of the fluctuation of the speed of light.
Well, you know, I wish he would have shown the Earth, because the one flaw that they're doing when they're talking about this, they're showing the Earth as this perfect little globe. Truth is, it looks like a friggin' Nazi's head that's been hit, a shaven head that's been hit by a hammer in a whole lot of places.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all like weird and misshapen and knots in it. And I mean, that's the way the Earth is really shaped. I mean, it's not perfectly round. It's not flat. I mean, matter of fact, I think the flat earthers need to have their heads bounced off with the round Earth theory. I mean, but that's why we spin all off at a funky angle and stuff like that. I mean, like I say, we look like a bald head that's been hammered on.
Yeah. So and the idea of
it's gotta fluctuate.
It would make sense because everything fluctuates that we know of, like, but then they give us these constants, you know, and what he's saying is it's dogmatic and it's holding science back. And that's where I wrote a paper about, you know, science is a religion, you know, you just believe, you know, so, but the part about the mind too, that's really interesting. Like, you know, how something you can feel somebody looking at you, and he's talking about how, like, they're saying that in science, they're saying it's all happening in your brain. But how could that be? You know, he's talking about how, like, your vision is a projection, and how like you're reaching out and touching those stars from far away. Like they really do exist. It's not something that you are creating in your mind, and that your
Also,
mind.
I found a Daily Mail article.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
It's on this topic. Let me see if
Well, this is the reason why this kind of transparent
Actually,
reporting is.
it's what the Earth looks like without water, and shows you why we got some weirdness. And it's Daily Mail. That's why I got excited, because it's not like hey, what the fuck? It is, but it's not. There you go, Potato Earth.
Let me read the caption. It says, Rupert Sheldrake, PhD, is a biologist and author best known for his hypothesis of morphic resonance. At Cambridge University, he worked in development biology, and as a fellow of Clare College, he was principal plant physiologist at the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics in Hyderabad, India. From 2005 to 2010, he was director of the Parrot-Warwick Project for research on unexplained human and animal abilities, funded by the Trinity College, Cambridge. Sheldrake has published a number of books: A New Science of Life, 1981, The Presence of the Past, 1988, The Rebirth of Nature, 1991, 7 Experiments That Could Change the World, 1994, Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home, 1999, The Sense of Being Stared At, 2003, The Science Delusion, Science Set Free, 2012, Science and Spiritual Practices, 2017, Ways of Going Beyond and Why They Work, 2019. Rupert gave a talk entitled The Science Delusion at TEDx Whitechapel, January 12, 2013. The theme for the night was Visions for Transition, Challenging Existing Paradigms and Redefining Values for the More Beautiful World. In response to protests from 2 materialists in the U.S., the talk was taken out of circulation by TED, relegated to a corner of their website, and stamped with a warning label. Yeah, so they don't really, TED is not really supporting this very much. Let's read some comments. It says, remember, science as a method and science as an institution are 2 different things. At some point, I'm going to make a video on the very topic explaining the details why that is so. So he says science as a method and science as an institution are 2 different things. So science as an institution is the part that I'm talking about, where it makes it into a religion. It becomes an institution. But science as a method is questioning everything, looking at the data, really trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And instead of saying, okay, we figured this out, so let's move on, and no reason to go back and double check this stuff. Let me read another comment. It says, crossed into the realm of pseudoscience. The fact that they take his wholly valid intellectual criticism of their worldview and label it pseudoscience, despite science not actually being the basis for what he's talking about, essentially proves him right. You don't agree with us, you're guilty of pseudoscience, because everything we believe is science. Oh yeah, that's it. Let me read another one. It says, I've personally been thinking about this subject for a while now. Many fields of science have interested me since I was a kid, and I'm definitely not an anti-science by any means. But over the years, I've begun to notice that most of the scientific world subscribe uncompromisingly to the materialistic view, almost to the point of being a religion in its own right. Many scientists have become rigid and dogmatic. Anything that might go against their materialistic views is not bothered with, and anyone who does study these things are not given much credence. I would think that as a scientist, you would want to find the truth, and to do so, study all possible avenues.
Okay, so that's just kind of a way of scientists are only trying to prove what'll give them the money.
And there goes the problem right
Oh,
there.
I want my grants.
That's
Oh,
what it
wait,
is.
if I come up with this alternate science to like the COVID or something like that,
My grants
I'm
dry
gonna
the
be
hell up, and I'm gonna be
right.
poor.
And it doesn't matter if what I found out might be the basis of stopping 82 other things, because I'm going against the current situation. We're going to shut you down.
Yeah. And this is holding us back. This is keeping us from being able to move forward in science.
Yet learning how to weaponize it values more money spent in other countries than learning how to prevent it. No, how to prevent it or help it or cure it does here in our own country.
I think the word is monetize, because they
That's
finding a
why I
way to
repeated that
monetize.
word.
Yeah, they're trying to find a way to monetize it, and that's the point, because the where the grants are coming from is people who are interested in making more money. So we'll give you grants to study certain particular things that's
Yeah,
gonna.
remember, I'm the follow the money guy.
So that's what it's all about.
That's why I say just all this, just like all the other things I say, follow the money. Politicians, follow the money. What's going to happen? Follow the money. Science, follow the money. Who's getting paid? Who's getting the grants? They're the ones making the science.
Yep. I think we've gotten to a point where it's kind of scary, and I think that it's like a brick wall that has happened, where we don't want to examine data just because it goes against the.
Dude, we've given Pfizer billions of dollars to come up with these jabs, which I'm not going to say anything against. I'm just going to say there's a whole lot of weirdness going on around them. Okay? I'll leave it at that. Neither side I'm not going to take. But, however, if you test positive within 3 to 5 days, they now have an oral cure for it. So you can get jabbed 3 to 5 times, still get it and die, because for some reason people that haven't gotten the jab are more dangerous to you now. But if you do get it, here's a pill. It'll be gone in a week.
Let me read a couple more comments. It says, in my experience in college and having to work in departments that call themselves a science, I have personally experienced that academics are some of the most closed-minded and dogmatic individuals who are so disconnected from the world
Hell
and
yes.
other people within it, and are so certain that they know the answer to everything, despite the scientific method being a philosophical method of inquiry, discovery, but not certainty. Yeah, so why
Hell
can
yes.
how can they be so certain about everything when?
Because they are brought up with their knowledge. They are brought up with their education. They got good degrees. They got science and shit, not gender studies. They
Yeah.
know they're right. Remember this whole last 30 years of people coming out of schools, they are right about everything. They know what's going on. They know the science. It's not about a question anymore. Matter of fact, it's even better if they're a scientist of color, because now they've discovered, and if you question them, it's no longer a matter of questioning the science, you're questioning their color.
Let me read another one. It says, so many people today, and even professional scientists, seem to me like somebody who has seen thousands of trees but has never seen a forest. A knowledge of the historic and philosophical background gives that kind of independence from prejudices of his generation from which most scientists are suffering. This independence created by philosophical insights is, in my opinion, the mark of distinction between a mere artisan or a specialist and a real seeker after truth. Albert Einstein. Another comment.
Yeah, if you want to use that analogy, it seems to me like this guy may not see the forest, but he understands the difference of every single tree in that forest.
Yeah.
And how every single tree makes up what is that forest.
But that's still not seeing the...
That's where we need... Well, they don't want us to look at that. They want us to look at the forest and go, that's a pretty forest.
Yeah, but you can't see the trees for the... You can't see the forest for the tree. You can't look at both of them at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying. They're saying he's not looking at the forest they're saying he's not looking at the forest, the average of all the trees, and he's saying you're not looking at the trees whose smallest and largest make up the entirety of the forest.
And that's true, but I think you need a person to really study the trees, and then I think you need a person to study the forest. It's just a different perspective.
I agree. And that's why you've got the scientists using the average mean. Okay, 186,000 miles per second is light speed. You know,
and
gravity
the same thing
is G equals X. G equals 0.9x, 1.1x, all the G equals capital G V variable.
Yeah, well,
And
that's not what they're doing.
But people don't understand that. So science has to say capital G is a G.
And that's it. But it's actually an average of all of these different data points.
But when you go from, say the St. Louis Arch, if you went the averages of this and that and didn't go down to the mathematical science, that arch would not have met at the top. And it did perfectly. Before computers, by the way, slide rule boss. I mean, so if you think about it that way, it's a couple of inches this way or a couple of inches that way, instead of it is this mathematical number. Then if you're doing calculations about the high speed of gravity, where that small little difference is multiplied by all of the calculations in between, then you've got people go, okay, the speed of light is slightly variable based, or we're doing gravity. Gravity is slightly variable based on things. And that would have, like I said, that would change your calculations at the top end.
That's my point. My point is that these variations throw off the math for everything else. So they don't want to have to go through that struggle. So just, give it a constant, decide on what the constant is. Therefore, their math can be the same.
That's the difference between 2-year college, 4-year college, and then 6-year and 8-year college.
Yeah. So, but how many?
Gravity is a constant up through a master's degree, but once you hit doctorate, you learn that all the shit you learned before needs to be thrown out the window.
Yeah. So that's my point. How many other areas of study are affected by these variables that aren't even put into the equation?
Well, the speed of light alone would affect laser technology, amplification, solar technology.
And so how much are we missing? And how much are we not discovering? How many technologies could we have discovered or, things that we could be using that would be way more accurate if we were, using the proper math.
It's like education. Our entire education system, truthfully, can be summed up like this. What are we missing? Measuring by the lowest common denominator.
Yes. A whole lot.
And that's not, and this goes much deeper than the science conversation we're having, like I said. Education, politics, knowledge, culture. We measure everything now by the lowest common denominator.
So we're missing
to make it easy. And then when people try to measure it by something different, something better, they're exclusionary. They're evil. They're bad. They're gatekeepers.
Right. They're kicked out of the club. They don't get to be published in the science journals. They don't get the grants. Let me read a couple more comments.
Bad men. Very bad men. You get no money.
I read a couple more comments. It says, this guy's on point. Ted lost a huge amount of respect for me for having removed this. This is a deep inherent danger in blind belief systems, whether they be based on science, philosophy, or myth. Holding any one of those above the rest is asking for a repeat of historical atrocities. Another comment, Rupert Sheldrake is one of the most important, most brilliant, and most original thinkers, scientists that we have right now. God bless him. Another one, thank you for reviving that talk. It was excellent and goes to show there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to men's behavior. Arrogance and pride lead to closed minds and censorship. One more comment. It says, vital not to shut down entire spheres of thought because we're afraid of asking verboten questions. People can certainly ask questions in bad faith, but this doesn't come off like that. Thanks for sharing. I think I'm losing everybody. Let's get off of this heavy stuff. Let's lighten up a bit. I have a
oh, this ain't heavy. This is just science of math, man.
Yeah, I think that we'll lose a lot of the audience. It's not following us.
Well, hey, one thing I would like to say, hey, anyone out there in the audience paying attention, even for this little bit, drop a comment, drop a like, drop something, go, hey, cover this. Tell us what you would like to see, and we will go out of our way to cover it for you. I'm good saying that.
I want to do this segment right here where Karen Hunter, she was talking about the ozone layer healing itself. We're still kind of in the same realm here. And how, like, when we had the COVID thing and how it seemed like nature was rebounding when we was all locked up, the animals was roaming around and stuff. The balance. Let me play some Karen Hunter.
It's like compound interest. If you are moving in a particular
Am I sharing?
direction and it is positive, it is about, feeding and seeding and community and life and love, that it compounds on itself, just like negativity is compounding. And negativity is compounding so much quicker. It's so easy to destroy. But there's a tipping point of positivity where in the beginning you will be discouraged about changing your life, changing your diet, changing your friends, because the negative, the universe will be mad because, like, what are you doing? What are you doing this good stuff? No. Here, take this bag of potato chips. No. Let's go to the club. Here, have this drink. No. Don't you want to smoke with the, as soon as you start doing some good things, that's when the people start coming out and like, don't you want to, here comes the temptation, but then there's a point where you're impervious to the temptation because the goodness is so good that it is not worth it. You're like, not I've been there. No, I'm not trying to do that. And we've all been in places where we're not trying to do that again, but we somehow get sucked into it because it's almost like a comfort bubble in the muck. Sometimes the muck can be warming, inviting. You know, you sit in it long enough, you don't realize that you're actually being sucked in like quicksand until you get out. And you're like, I'm not going back. And then somehow you find yourself back there because the things that got you out, you stop doing. Like it doesn't, the world's not stopping because you know, it's like you never get to the finish line of goodness. It is an actual continuous relay race with yourself to get to the next place, And I'm not saying that to say it's exhausting, because it's not. At some point, you don't have to do the same things to get to the place. Now it just starts to compound, and then community builds around you. So you don't have to work as hard because other people are like, what you doing? Oh, I want to do that too. And then you got a whole community of people doing the same thing. So it's just beautiful. I just wanted to just say that, for those of you who may be struggling, like, I changed my life and it just got worse. It might get worse.
Yes.
It's always darkest before the dawn. It might get worse for a minute, but joy comes in the morning.
Yeah.
You just got to sit through it, get through
Mama
it.
does
Most
too.
of us, when it gets too tough,
they're
we're like,
scavengers.
okay, I give. But going back, it's
They're
like Harriet
grandma-
Tubman. Okay, we're going to be free. But we're going to have to go through this swamp. There may be some snakes in the swamp. We're going to go through this brush. You're going to get scratched by the thistle. There might be dogs coming. But I promise you, when we get to Philly, it's all good, But the first snake, oh no, at least back in Massa, I got a meal. I get to make a fire. I know that I'm going to have clothes on my back. I'm not going to be bit by snakes. I'm going back to slavery.
She's making the point that it's, striving for freedom, striving for growth, there's a lot of difficulty that comes along with that, and people have fear. So then I think that this is a really good point that she's making, in that, people choose slavery, out of fear of the struggle, it's kind of like following along with society, to go along just to get along, because the fear of being ostracized, the fear of having to make your own way, the fear of having to rely on your intelligence, rely on your abilities to get where you want to go, without having someone to show you or help you or guide you along the way. So I think a lot of humanity fall back into slavery mindset out of fear of the struggle.
Some of us keep going back to slavery. And it seems like it's, we're taken care of. And freedom, the early days are going to be tough. But when you get through, nothing like it. On that note, there's a story I was holding. The ozone layer is healing. Good news. Let me give y'all some good news. The ozone layer. Remember, forever we've been talking about the hole in the ozone layer. We got to put on sunscreen, which we still do, because the ozone layer. Because the ozone layer is going to give us cancer. The ozone layer. It's just horrible. We have, aerosol cans. Remember back in the 80s, people were using hairspray and messing up the ozone layer. We were talking about the ozone layer. And now the ozone layer, apparently the scientists have said it's healing itself. It is healing itself, and it will be fully mended. There's this giant hole over Antarctica. In about 43 years, I plan on being here, by the way, the United Nations reported that it will be completely healed in this giant hole that's over Antarctica. It is a once in every 4 years scientific assessment that they've done, and they've been watching this recovery process. And more than 35 years after the nation in the world agreed to stop using and producing chemicals that chomp away at the ozone layer, the Earth's atmosphere, the shield around our planet that keeps us from the harmful radiation of the beautiful sun, cataracts and crop damage, it's healing. I suspect that them 2 years of COVID also helped. At least the 8-9 months that the entire world sat their asses down, no airplanes in the sky. And we saw it just in 2 months. The animals were like, word, we get to be out in them streets. No people, none of them horrible human. Oh, no humans. Okay, let's go. Come on, elephants and tigers and bears. Oh my, they were out in them streets. The sky cleared up. You remember it was blue. China, even over China, it was blue. California was blue. The sky was like, oh, whew, wait a minute. No, none of these harmful things. We saw the earth heal itself.
I was completely fascinated during the pandemic. That was one of the rabbit holes I went, and there wasn't enough videos. I couldn't find enough stuff to fill my insatiable appetite for it, of how nature was rebounding as a result of us all being on lockdown. You know, did any of y'all see? Did y'all see any of that stuff?
I actually sent you a few things about that.
Yeah, that I was watching videos and reading about it and looking it up and trying to find as much as I could.
I said that was going to happen. The skies over LA had some of the first absolutely clear pictures of downtown in my living memory.
And you could see the stars way better. You could see the moon way better.
In downtown Houston. In where I'm at. I'm at Beltway 8 in Westheimer.
But I was mostly
I could see freaking stars.
I saw the stars. It was so many more stars in the sky. But I was mostly fascinated by the animals and how they reacted, you know, and like rebounded, and like they was I remember some clips of, it was like sheep or something. It was like moose or whatever. They were just roaming through the towns and eating on the bushes and stuff.
Well, you know, a lot of the like coyotes, they were talking about, you know, before the pandemic, coyotes coming into the neighborhoods, but they stopped coming into the neighborhoods during the pandemic because the other smaller animals were able to proliferate because they weren't being hunted anymore. I mean, the food chain was not disrupted as much as it is when people are out there hiking and being dumbasses out in the wild.
Yeah, I was totally fascinated, and it really gave me a sense of, I don't know, a really good feeling in my heart when I saw how animal life was thriving when we was in lockdown. I wanted to see more and more videos of it. Like it was amazing to me, you know, and it shows that the disruptions that we do, the destructions that we do, the pollutions that we do, you know, and also it shows how quickly the earth can rebound and heal itself. Really interesting stuff.
In just a short period of time, and now we know that the ozone, because I feel like we are one with the planet if we really, you know that. And if the planet is designed to heal itself, we have knocked it out of homeostasis, you know, because human beings are so damn damaging that we almost, but I was like, I always say Mother Earth is undefeated. She was going to shake us the F off. She's going to preserve herself. That is the first law of man and nature, self-preservation. Earth, EARF, was going to have the last say. And she's slowly, you know, letting us know, you know, and it wasn't just COVID, you know, because COVID is a byproduct of the earth saying, sit your ass down. California right now, shout out to all of the folk in California, and I'm saying shout out as in prayers, because there's a lot of people, you know, from the fires last year, now it's floods. Thousands of people are fleeing their homes. The death toll is rising from these devastating storms that, again, Mother Earth is going to have her say in the.
What do y'all think about that? I was thinking about how, like, you know, us, even politically, we talk about California and people, you know, Hollywood is in California, you know, all the debauchery that goes on there.
The porn.
you know, all of that, and you think about Mother Nature, and you think about you think
Okay,
about
you do
God.
realize you do realize that one very large producer of porn is Tyler, Texas.
Yeah.
At one point, they had 3 companies producing over 15 videos a week, and this is back in the 80s and 90s.
I didn't know that, but it seems like California is being punished. You know,
Well, everyone's saying, well, New Orleans got a pass. Florida fucked up. The wrath of God hit them. Now California heathens are getting a taste of God's wrath from all these storms. I'm not saying it. Hey, I'm just,
and there's some history related to California. You know, with some horrible things that have happened. You know, that we have done as humans, and I just wonder. You know, I wonder if I mean, I believe in God, I do, and I believe in the universe, you know, and I also believe in like the numerology and like the astrology,
Cardology.
So
I also believe in the really crazy skeptical writing part of my brain that says there's some crazy screwball out there holding the government up for millions and trillions of dollars, saying, look, just to prove this, I'm going to drive a hurricane that's never happened before through the entire state instead of just hitting it one way or another. Oh, wait, there's never been on one in California? Hey, let me prove what I can do. Bam. I'm sorry, hitting New Orleans 5 times in a row over 8 years wasn't enough? Hey, let me prove it. I mean, I'm a conspiracy theorist. There's a supervillain out there doing this, man.
What if the supervillain is God? What if the supervillain is the universe?
Well, then he is neither benevolent or benign, and therefore I will have to start rejecting him.
Well,
because if he is not a good God, then he is no God that I am willing to give my belief to.
Oh, well, then see, I have a problem with that philosophy right there, because I believe God is everything, and we talked about in the show.
Absolutely, so do I.
So we talked about the devil being God in a ski mask, and the idea, the concept of good and evil is just a perception of man anyway.
That's the yin and yang, the balance you're trying to talk about. Don't put it on a different level.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So that you can't separate the yin from the yang. Can you?
I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that if God is conscious and active, and he allows this to happen, then he is not benign.
Well, I don't believe in the benign God. I don't believe in the good God. I believe
then why worship him as a God? If he can't do anything or he won't do anything, then why is he worthy of worship?
Because it's the creation. It's the creator of all.
Because you've been taught that from the beginning. Because that's what you've been told. That's the way you were raised.
And no, I wasn't. I was actually
conditioned from an early age to say there is a God, a higher power of all of this. It don't matter what he feels about me. All that matters is that I believe.
I was conditioned that God is good all the time. God is good all the time. That's how I was conditioned.
Because you have just admitted he is neither benevolent nor benign.
How
is he good
now?
Then how is he good?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he's good and bad. I'm saying that there's no separation from the two. I'm saying the good and bad is just our perception of what's good and what's bad.
That sounds like a very serious backpedal.
I'm saying
rationalization on a soul level.
I'm saying that, you know, I grew up in the church, and God is good all the time. So when good things happen in your life, it's God, and when bad things happen in your life, it's the devil. But as I've
Yes.
grown spiritually, I don't
But it's
believe
never
that's
you, which gives you the ability to say, if I do good, it's them. If I don't do well, it's somebody else's fault.
and I don't believe that.
That
I,
is the ultimate level of actually denial.
I believe it. I believe in the balance. I believe that, you know, the good things that happen is God, and the bad things that happen is God. That's what I believe.
Okay, I have to use the restroom. Back in 2.
So, you know, Pat, you there? Back me
Yeah.
up on this. I know you here. You on my side on this one. I know that because we didn't have this conversation multiple times. give me some backup.
Now, like, refresh me on what, because y'all were going back and forth, and I was kind of, because I kind of remember the conversation, but just give me a spark me.
It's, you know, Doc said that, you know, why worship God if He's not good? It's like God
Oh
has to
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah. Well,
good.
yeah, because I was about to add in a few minutes ago. It's like, I mean, you know, and especially if you look at the text in the Bible, He created both good and evil. Like they don't exist without the other. That's the polarities that we all live with under the universal principles. So, um, I mean, you can worship Him or not worship Him. I think, to me, I think it's you know, whether you do or you don't, it doesn't make it not exist anymore. You know what I'm saying? It still is. You know, at the end of it all, it still is.
So
So,
then it's like you worshiping only part of God. If you
well,
say, you know, I can only worship God if He's good.
well, see, but see, the thing about that is just his perception of what God of what God is what he needs to fix. Because regardless of
Well,
what he
well,
calls
well,
it,
is it
or
like?
how,
Well, like I said, you're saying God is good and God is that. I'm like, He is not. He is not. He is actually has no interest and has had no interest in a long time.
I don't agree with that. I mean,
He
I
even
think
checked out, and supposedly, according to popular dogma, he even checked out and said, "Here, man, you deal with it, little one."
well, I mean, even the fact that you using the word he or identifying it, you know,
He,
it proves,
she, I changed
yeah.
that throughout, and
Well,
give
no,
me a
no, I
few more
get.
quotes, and it will.
Well, I mean, however, he or she exists in your consciousness in some form or fashion, and you know that is worshiping enough. Like there's enough belief there that it even, like, you even can, you know, say that it exists. So,
Okay, you remember my thoughts and ideas of all of this from a
yeah.
while back, don't you?
Well,
I
I think,
mean,
yeah, we've talked about it
he
before.
even used it. He even used it as a quote to close out the shows for like several months.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't really remember because I do so many shows,
I
but
mean, seriously, God is this. Ultimately, the divine power is this energy source that is comprised of all the world's belief, non-belief, all this energy that we have, and we draw on it from whatever direction we see, we feel, whatever our belief is. And not only do we reflect that into that energy field, it reflects onto us. But it's
Well,
something that everyone draws on. And ultimately, it is a calming, peaceful, it is a presence which enlivens our life because it literally is part of all of life.
and I agree with that. So
And
embracing the
now,
shadow
like
is
I
what
said,
gives you the calmness.
This is what I'm feeling about this. You have a slightly different definition of God than me. And to me, your definition of God, it's not a confirmation of everything going on. It is a single being that is above everyone, not a part of everything.
No, I don't think. No, that's not my that. You misunderstand me then, because I feel like it's all one. There's only one, so it's all part of the whole. So we are a part of God.
Yeah, we are the part of the whole.
Well, see, no, we are part of a higher power. By saying God, you have given it a name.
Well, it doesn't matter because I mean,
because
what I call it, the
Odin,
universe.
because Odin, because Allah, because Yahweh, because Set, Mbuku, Shinaga, Ishena. I mean, it doesn't matter what you call it to me.
Uh-huh.
You are only limiting your view by naming it, because it is more than all of that. But
Well,
by
see,
naming
but that's the same
it, if it
argument I
is,
was giving just a minute ago. That I mean, just you
I was
recognize
restrooming at the
and
time.
oh well, yeah. I mean, by you recognizing it at all is a form of worship, and regardless of what kind of power, because I mean, my thing is that okay, he's he's both equally good and bad if you want to call it that. But I mean, on the spectrum, when we look at it as an energy force, we're still looking at the positive and the negative ranges that it can
No,
fall within.
because then we begin to understand that the power of God, we who are made in his image, are actually the source of that power. And by doing that, we become the good and evil.
Yeah.
Well, we're not the source of it, but we are a part of
We are
it.
the conduit.
Okay. So, but I'm not asking you to. We're really not asking you to praise it, because I remember you said worshiping. Why worship God if it is good and evil? Like, so like the argument to that is that regardless of what you call it, it still is what it is, and just you
Like I say,
you calling
that's
it
where
a
the
he,
argument.
she, or it, you are already giving to the idea that it is whatever you want to name
It is an entity.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me
Or
ask you.
it is a source. Like I say, the collective power source of all, which actually puts it more in the guise of like Cthulhu, Hastor, or something like that, going by the old primordial gods back offering their way to. Truthfully, if you got to understand what they were and what they were about, you would lose your crap, because that would be like an ant becoming a human for 1 second and understanding everything that there was to be about humanity, and then becoming an ant again, and then trying to freaking deal with that.
That would be a tough situation right there. So, but let me ask you this, Doc. So, do you believe in a benevolent God, like
No.
a benevolent God that steps in and makes changes or
No.
influences things one way or another as
No.
it sees fit?
I believe it is an energy source that can be manipulated and can be used and can be built and can be worked on.
Yeah.
And truthfully, there is nothing in any holy book that contradicts that.
And I agree. I don't believe in a benevolent God. I believe that it's the systems that have been put in place, the cycles that continue.
And remember, I go all the way back to studying Zoroastrianism and stuff like that, the pre-Abrahamic religions.
Yeah, me too. So,
though the Egyptians and some of the Middle East and Eastern ones really do confuse me.
So so what was it? It's Set, and what's the other one?
Set was death. There's Osiris. There's Ta.
Well, the main
Bast.
two, where it's like the underworld and the above world, and it's like
Osiris and Set, God of the sun and God of the underworld.
That's the two I'm looking for. So it's like
the Eye and the Jackal.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a good name for a story. I got to write that down.
So the idea of Set and Osiris. So then you can, as humans, in our perceptions of what's good and evil, then maybe we can choose to embrace one over the other, like, dark magic or, miracles, creation or destruction,
No, it's like some people can manipulate other people and screw them over, and other people have this charisma to build them. It's all part of the positive and negative. We all have gifts. We all have strengths. It's what we do. It's how we use them. I mean, it's how we want to resonate with that energy field, and it can give you power to do good if you want to do that, but it can also show you how to hump things up.
Yeah, so the difference between the sun and the moon, or the
It's how
difference
you
between the daylight and nighttime.
It's all about everybody's greedy personal desire to draw energy and power. When you really put it down to that, it's about the selfishness of every human being. To create negative energy and to get power from that, to create strife, to create drama, that is easy. And all of that is there, and it is good, and it is tasty, and it is easy. And it's like fast food. It makes you fat. It makes you lazy. It makes you crazy. But then if you try to find ways to produce joy into the world, it's harder. But what you get back is cleaner. It's a better energy. It's harder to come by. You got to work for it. It's not something that you're just going to walk up to and go, hey, here's a nice little bounty of fresh energy. Unless you do that to someone and then strip all their good energy away. But what you're doing is you're working with that energy, and you build it slowly. So you've got these two different kinds of people that are slowly building in the world now. All these people, and you can actually do this as an allegory to rich and poor, powerful, not powerful, the haves and the have-nots. You can burn through people, you can burn through stuff and get a whole lot of energy, money, power really, really quick by consuming everything around you. But you have to constantly consume. You will eventually, no matter what, bottom out at the top. But if you learn to create your own energy, if you learn to create a positive environment around you, that energy, while it takes harder, more time to build, it feeds you better. It's cleaner. There's less waste. There's not as much destruction. So, that's what I'm saying. There's two different kinds of ways people go about it. You try to build an energy, and as much as I hate AOC, that is exactly what she's trying to do. She actually is. I don't agree with 90% of what she says, but her passion, the way she's building grassroots and all of that, that's exactly what I'm talking about. She's trying to build positive energy and build from that. You don't see her near as much as she used to coming out negative about people. And that's the thing going on with politics today. It's real easy to build that vote. Get them people. Hey, man, you talk shit about them. That's fucking great. I want to vote for you because I don't like them either. instead of like, hey, vote for me because these are your interests. Not trashing these people, but getting a sewage line built to you so you don't have to use your damn outhouse.
Let me read some of this. I want to hear y'all comments on this. I typed in God. It popped up for Wikipedia. And it says, in monotheistic thought, God is usually viewed as the supreme being, creator, and principal object of faith. God is typically conceived as being omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, and omnibenevolent, as well as having an eternal and necessary existence. God is often thought to be incorporeal, invoking transcendence or immanence. Some religions describe God without reference to gender, while others use terminology that is gender-specific and gender-biased. God has been conceived as either personal or impersonal. In theism, God is the creator and sustainer of the universe, while in deism, God is the creator but not the sustainer of the universe. In pantheism, God is the universe itself, while in pantheism, the universe is part but not the whole of God. Atheism is an absence of belief in God or any other deity, with agnostic is the belief that the existence of God is unknown or unknowable. God has also been conceived as the source of all moral obligation and the greatest conceivable existent. Many notable theologians and philosophers have developed arguments for and against the existence of God. God is referred to by many names depending on the language and cultural tradition, with titles sometimes used referred to God's attributes. Most scientists agree that God cannot be proven or disproven by the scientific method. Moreover, that science answers the natural while religion answers the supernatural. What do y'all think about that? So it says monotheistic thought, God is usually viewed as the supreme being, creator, and principal object of faith, and omnipotent and omnibenevolent, eternal and necessary existence. God is often thought to be incorporeal, evoking transcendence and immanence. So that's the argument of God is good all the time.
Well, I mean, is he good all the time? I mean, there's got to be some times when he's bad too, right? Or is that the balance that we were talking about with
Yeah, so when bad things happen, because how we got on this topic was with California. So
Well,
when
see,
bad,
Pitt, I'm on the. If you go by my description, I'm more up. You're killing me. You just moved it out of the way. Yeah.
Oh my bad.
The pantheism is more what I was describing as the God being the universe, and we take or add or whatever, we look at it and okay. Oh God. Okay, sorry. There's this story that I told kids and stuff like that when I was doing stories at the library. And it's about a grandfather who takes his grandson to the market one day. And as they pass by, as they're walking by, they see these blind men looking or feeling an elephant, touching an elephant, going, the elephant is it's like God. The elephant's the spear is like the elephant, the spear, it's the tusk, it's like a spear. Oh no, the leg is like a giant trunk of a tree. oh, the the trunk is like a snake. And the grandfather thinks about it for a second and says, isn't this the most wonderful moment to be able to talk to my grandchild and see that these blind men are looking at this elephant and touching him and seeing it like God, and how each one is touching and being part of this creature, yet has a completely different take from it and a completely different idea. And then the son tugs on his arm and says, grandfather, why are they all touching that elephant? It's kind of creepy.
Yeah, I've heard this before, and it's a really good
It
idea.
comes way back from Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
I used to tell it with the accent back when I could, but now that gets me literally kicked out of the library.
Yeah, I've heard this before, and so the idea is that each person,
And that was as brief as I could make it.
Each person's perception, and they're not wrong either. That's the part of that that's really really interesting, because
You take away, everybody takes away something different,
and neither one of them are wrong, but they're not getting the full. And how could we ever? That's another question. How can we even really perceive the idea of God? Can we even fathom it? So the line where it said in here, where it says, while in pantheism, the universe is part, but not the whole of God. So, and I like that a lot, because I say the universe, God is the universe, but I also believe that God is more than the universe. And it's unknowable. Because of our limited abilities of perception. Like the analogy that you just used with the blind man touching the elephant.
Heck, like I said about the ant becoming a human for a few seconds. That's a really good analogy right there. It's like, we are ants. God is a human. If all of a sudden we understood God, but then became human again, it would be like an ant understanding humans and becoming an ant again. I mean, we still, at our maximum potential, still couldn't even begin to understand the concept of God.
And what about the part of giving us intelligence, like making us intelligent enough to understand stuff, but not enough to understand completely? I think about the Island of Dr. Monroe a lot. It comes to my mind a lot. And there's a scene in the movie where it's the tiger one, and he has the gun and he shoots, and the tiger one, he walks into the fire, and then he's like, why? He screams, why? And I sympathize with that particular character from the Island of Dr. Monroe, because it's like he's like, why do I, this intelligence that I was given is like, he kills himself. And it's like he's the guy who made these creatures is an analogy for God, right? He was creating these different animals, half human, half whatever. And
I don't know. You're talking about a movie, and there's been 4 of them, and I read the book, so yeah.
I think I read that book. It's in there too. The concept
you should have, being our age, because it's not something they read in schools anymore.
Yeah, I want to say I read that, but my brain.
I made my son read it because they didn't assign it in school.
I think
it's now part of the summer reading list.
I think everybody should read that. There's so much going on with that. So, but what I'm saying is the part where he's like, why? he's screaming why as he walks into the fire, and he's like, why did you do this to me? Why did you, I'm an abomination, and that's the idea I think about related to the intelligence that man has. What do y'all think about that? The abomination of the intelligence of humans with our technologies and so forth. Just enough technology to destroy ourselves and not really understand what the hell we're doing. What do y'all think about that? And there's other parts to the island of Dr. Monroe related to, the evolution of man or humankind or mankind and genetic.
Well, before you're going to talk about a book that was old before any of us were born, you should give us a little notice so we could be ready for a book report.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read it a couple of times. I've seen 3 of the 5 movies, and I've seen 2 or 3 movies that are literally based on it, but not the same thing. So, yeah,
it's one movie.
Completely unprepared. That would be like, let's talk about Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bunch about young kids taking over. Yeah, we could talk.
But that's a good one too, because that's kind of the same thing we're talking about, Lord of the Flies, and it's God, it's the supreme leader, it's the all of the animalistic of
you see
of
what
us.
I'm doing here.
It's
like I say, if we're going to have a book report, give us some advance warning.
Well, it's just
you're wanting us to talk about books and stuff like that. That, man, I'll tell you, I haven't read any of those in at least 30 years. And to be honest, the fact that I read them in my 20s and 30s again is more than most people do.
But a book like Lord of the Flies, a book like Island of Dr. Monroe, they stick with you. It's concepts in it that don't never go away. Like I say,
dude, so does Little Women and Little House on the Prairie if you actually read them.
Yeah, but that's Little House on the Prairie is not like what we're talking about related to the human condition,
life growing up in the pioneer frontier and things at that time, you would be surprised how much information you can get about the human condition back then.
Yeah.
But again, that is still a different subject.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of
a
different
that's
subject.
Like white lives matter, black lives matter, all lives matter. It's like, okay, we're talking about this right now. Come on, dude.
Well, that's what I mean, because I think Island of Dr. Monroe goes with what we're talking about. And then it's like the guy was trying to do the genetic engineering. He was trying to be God. That's what the dude was trying
to play God.
Play God. He was trying to play God.
Even he admitted it. He was playing God.
And that's the idea.
I know which one you're talking about. You're talking about the one where the Godfather wore the popcorn bucket on his head.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Marlon Brando.
Yes, that one. It's really funny.
One of the worst versions of it, by the way.
The South Park made fun of that movie. It had me rolling. It was like the little mini me
to be made fun of.
The little mini me one that he made, and it was like what South Park was like. Wait, what is that guy? What is it supposed to be? It's like
because you read the book and you're using that movie to talk about the book. It's kind of, oh God.
I don't know. That's the one that sticks out to me.
Well, yeah, because
my memory.
How bad it is.
Anyways, I think we're going in circles now. It's probably because I'm tired.
The 60s version was way better.
Yeah.
Just not as creepy.
Yeah. So, but let me ask you this though. What about the idea of genetically? Okay, we got the Adam and Eve story, which doesn't really make sense in the Bible as far as the beginning of humans, when even in the Bible there was other people around. So in the island of Dr. Monroe,
Okay, let's hold on right there. So it said there were other peoples. They were cast out, but is this not where science would say the missing link is?
this is where I'm going with this. I'm going with it. How do we know that
They went out there and bred with some primates, or not quite humans yet?
Well, yeah, this is where I'm going with this. How do we know that it wasn't a man like the guy from Island Dr. Monroe doing genetic type engineering type stuff? Or you could say it wasn't even a man.
Well,
you could say it was
how do we know that the entire being ejected from there to another planet, or to another, you being out of the garden, which was the blessing of life and all the beginning, to another place, was not their own way of saying they crossed the stars to another place?
like another planet even, or maybe
How do we say that, mathematically we've done some crazy stuff about Noah's Ark? What if Noah's Ark was actually not a journey across a storm-filled world, but a storm-filled universe?
and my point is manipulation. Mankind populated on the earth by someone who genetically modified, mixing DNAs.
Yeah, I mean, how many religions, how many things throughout time have they came here and changed us, they came here and bred with us? Aztec, Incans, Mesopotamians,
the Nephilim, the Namo.
I mean, the whole thing that I do in my game world that I'm writing is the flood never happened. The flood was prevented by man. And because of that, magic, giants, all of that never left the world, because that was what God was wiping out.
And what I'm arguing is that the present day humans world that we live in now, as a result of this process that someone did to create man in the form that they are in now, mankind.
Well, hey, I don't understand why creationism and evolutionism can't coexist.
I make that argument all the time. I say that why can't evolution be the process of creation?
Does God look like man, or is God a formless energy field which doesn't necessarily have to inhabit a shell? Because technically, if God is an energy field in the way that he would have created us, he would inhabit the universe. The universe would be his body.
And
to create something that is able to have this kind of power that we do, because we do have power, we can generate it, we can suck it, we have power. Every individual human being does. But that soul, it comes from that soul and that life force. So, plankton can't handle that. Fish can't handle that. So you start building this body. We may have been created in the image, but that's the spark. The body had to evolve to where it could, the spark could inhabit it.
Yeah. So we've been breeding dogs for centuries.
Yeah,
right?
we are genetic evolution, man. We are a mad scientist's dream, even though that mad scientist may be God.
That's what I'm trying to say. So like
I
we
know.
or maybe maybe someone was like the island Dr.
Or a
Moreau.
goddess.
Someone was trying to be God, and they were like how we breed dogs, we're breeding humans.
Dude, we were some godchild's freaking science experiments that they presented in 8th grade or whatever and stuck back in a closet, man. We haven't been worried about since freaking it didn't matter. We have created our own energy field because we were made in that image and we have that freaking power.
So, but what if we're an abomination? You know, like,
you know what? I'm more worried about being an aberration than an abomination.
You know, just somebody wanted something cute, or like, you know, the idea of the
Okay.
What?
Here's one of my theories. The reason that the general galactic public doesn't want to have anything to do with us is because our brains are so freaking chaotic. We have these powers, these ability to manipulate energy, to literally make someone feel good, make someone feel bad, all of that. We have these powers and they're still undeveloped in us as a species. So they have to keep us cordoned off from the rest of the universe, because without the power to control who and what we are, we're going to go fuck up galactic civilization.
So, and I'm
not
thinking
to mention how fast we breed and how aggressive we are.
I'm thinking
it would
about
be like letting roaches. It would be like letting roaches with psychic powers out amongst the general public.
What is the name of the group of people who I can't think of it. I'm so tired now. The related to the Nephilim, related to the idea of you wanted a like created a slave race so that they could mine the earth for gold. What am I talking about? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know the theory and the concept. Yes.
I'm trying to think of the name of the people.
It's actually kind of the way they do it in Stargate. How they found us here and they ported people from all over the galaxies to become slaves for them,
so that they could do the work that they didn't want to do.
I'm assuming you've watched the Stargate series.
Yes, I did. I was into it heavily.
Yeah, so that's where a lot of what you're thinking about is coming from.
Well, no, it's old.
And
they got it from.
No, they got that from the past. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of Stargate plays a lot on every aspect of our culture and things like that.
Yeah, they were trying to tie it all together. So
see, I always wanted to run a Stargate style game because the world I've come, it uses our world map, but the flood never happened. So the line between magic and myth was never broken. You know, so all the old religions and the Abrahamic religions never flourished a whole lot, because when you actually have Odin that comes down every now and then and spanks somebody, it makes the Abrahamic religions a little less powerful.
What was it? I'm thinking the Book of Enoch, and what are those people called? The ones that they were like, and this is where the Elohim and all of that came from. And they were like astronauts, and they were from another planet. And it's like Nibiru. Oh man. man, I'm too delirious now. I can't even.
See, here's a different one of those subjects and stuff like that. And again, I'm not ready for it. Trust me, I know a lot about this, but I have to have my note nearby. All I need to read is one page of my notes, and all of it will download into my brain.
Yeah, let's come back to that. I want to talk about that, because the whole idea of Adam and
Sorry.
Eve.
I've been sending you links.
And you know, using the rib of Adam to make Eve, and then
And then ignoring Lilith.
Yeah, my brain is fried right now. I'm gonna have to wrap it. Y'all got any final?
Yeah, I'm baked. I'm overcooked.
Yeah, my brain is fried. I'm out of there. I can't even think straight now. So
yeah, I'm trying to make it to my stop.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back tomorrow, and hopefully it will be more coherent. We was all over the place today. I think the philosophy stuff is where we got lost in the show. But
well, it's a very leading thing, and there was no structure from the beginning.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the human condition because the name of the show today was Human Nature. So then that's where I wanted to try to stay in the realm of that. I don't know. I got lost. We're going to jump back into the politics tomorrow. All right, man. I guess we'll wrap it. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for listening. Peace and love.
For sure.
I got class in the morning, so I really can't stay late. That's why I got to wrap it.
I understand.
All right, y'all. Peace and love. We out. Be back tomorrow.